Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, hailing from Kokona, Wisconsin, riding a CST Tires SSI decals traveling back Yamaha YFC 450R, four-time ATV Motocross National Champion, number 25, Cody Jansen.
What's up, everybody?
We're back!
Welcome to the latest edition of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, episode 110 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, in stock and available for purchase today at shop.csttires.com. I'm your host, Cody Jansen, saying hello to our more than 210,000 monthly Digging Deep listeners in all 101 countries in which you are listening, and this is our Underground Review Show. Joel Hetrick regained his points lead in Texas, though Bryce Ford handled the added pressure of the red plate masterfully. Chad Wienen made his remarkable comeback from a broken collarbone, going straight to the podium exactly 3 weeks from the incident. Chad will join us tonight. And other standouts that will join us, Logan Stanfield, who continues to be on an absolute tear here in 2023. We'll get to know Adam Ulrich, who has been quite impressive early in his rookie pro campaign, and 17-year-old Mason Jackson won Pro-Am and looks like the future. We got all four of these guys joining this jam-packed review podcast right here on Digging Deep, so let's go. Let's quickly shout out all of our incredible partners. CST Tires, go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Thanks to SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. It was big news when Manscaped announced that they were jumping into the beard products game, introducing the Beard Hedger Pro Kit from Manscaped. A premium beard sculpting machine, the Beard Hedger allows dudes like you and I to style our beards to exactly our liking using a zoom wheel featuring 20 built-in lengths. This Pro Kit includes shampoo, conditioner, oil, and balm, all for your beard, as well as a brush, comb, and scissors. Now you're speaking my language, Manscaped. Get 20% off with free shipping by using code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. I say it every week, so rad that Manscaped is continuing to invest in ATV racing as a longtime partner of Digging Deep. Help us keep them in the fold and involved in ATV racing by using our Digging Deep 20 code so they know you enjoy Digging Deep and everything that we're about here. Support all the great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. The 2023 season is already heating up, but we both know you still need parts and gear. No matter what off-road gear parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. But before you buy, simply click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website. By using our specific link, we get a percentage of what you buy on the back end, enabling you to help us out while purchasing the parts you need anyway. And did you know you can buy OEM parts from Rocky Mountain ATVMC as well? Yep, shipped conveniently right to your door. So click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com to help us out while satisfying all your gear and parts needs. No new donors to shout out this week, though we do want to thank our monthly subscribers. We see you. We appreciate you so much. You keep the lights on here at Digging Deep. And if you are interested in donating and hearing your name on the show, you can find the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website. Again, major thanks to all who have donated. Now, if you can't donate, but you still want to help us out, you can leave us a rating and a review on iTunes and Spotify. That helps us out a ton. If nothing else, it helps show our partners that you really enjoy Digging Deep and you're passionate about us staying here long into the future. And one last thing I want to touch on here, longtime member of the ATV motocross community, young and up and coming rider, multi-time national champion, I would think, in the youth ranks. Lane Baird suffered a pretty serious injury this past weekend. Just want to let him and the Baird family know that we're thinking about them and that we're going to continue to keep Lane in our thoughts and prayers. I did see that there is a GoFundMe out there to help with some of Lane's medical bills, so seek that out if you so choose. But again, just wanted to let Lane Baird and his family know that we are thinking about and praying for him at this time. Now, it's showtime. The 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep.
Let's go!
All right, guys, round 3 of ATV Motocross National Championship action took us to Underground MX in Kemp, Texas, and I am stoked about the guest I have joining me to help break down all the action. Brought to you by our friends at Namura Technologies, your one-stop shop engine component supplier, known for their pistons, connecting rods, gasket kits, industry-leading top-end repair kits, and more. Purchase via your local dealer or online at www.namura.com. Please welcome Texas native and voice of Underground for periods over the weekend, Miss Aliza Capen. Aliza, thanks for joining me. Welcome to Digging Deep.
For sure. It's a fun one, especially after announcing all weekend, getting to watch all the racing action from the best spot on the track. And there was a lot of great racing action that we're going to talk about right here.
Yeah. You were just telling me a little bit on, how the commentating and announcing thing stuff went for you. So the story goes, kind of telling our listeners here, the story goes, Aliza shot me a message stating that she wanted to get into announcing and thought that jumping on the podcast would be a great way to tiptoe into that. But Aliza, you dove right in, just like you said there, you dove right in the deep end there before you even, before you got on the mic with us here. You got on the mic this past weekend at Underground, huh? So it must have been a little bit of a dream come true for you.
It was so much fun and didn't even prepare for it. Just kind of went straight into it.
Nice.
Got to help out Kevin with the announcing, and he was definitely super thankful to have the help. And I enjoyed every minute of it, especially getting to be on the other side of the sport. I raced for the last 5 years, and knee injuries and everything in school kind of got me out of being able to race every weekend, but I wanted to stay involved in it. And I've always wanted to get into announcing. So what better way than right here at my home track of Underground? I
love it. And I was just telling you before we hit record that, there's nothing more natural than talking about a sport that we love, right? I mean, to talk to public speak about something that you might not know a ton about, or some report that you did or something. I mean, that's like a whole nother deal, right? Than talking about something that we love so much. So I'm sure it did come natural to you to talk about the races, talk about, kind of break down what you're seeing right there. And from what I could hear on the Rated MX live feed there, sounded like you were doing an awesome job. You sounded supernatural doing it.
Well, thank you. And like you said, it's so much easier, especially when you've been around the sport. The people, the companies involved, the teams, everybody. It's secondhand nature.
Yeah, I love it. Well, stoked to have you here. Stoked to, have it all worked out as well as it did. That we were kind of thinking about this ahead of time, and then for you to do the announcing over the weekend and watch the racing so closely, that's our advantage here to have you here with us. So, Aliza, not only were you watching the racing go down and you got to take it all in and break it down for everybody over the PA, but you also know your stuff, because I believe, now don't quote me, there may be one or two other people, but I think that you are our first and only 3-time ATV fantasy event winner. You won at the previous round at Gatorback. So you definitely have some valuable insight when it comes to ATV motocross. And let's get into it, because like you said, there's a lot of great racing that went down, especially the pro class, but you know your stuff. You're not just some voice. You've clearly been able to predict this stuff pretty well.
I try, although sometimes it's just the luck of the draw and just hoping it works out.
Oh yeah. That's funny. Well, Aliza, so you're a Texas native, like I said at this jump here, and I've been on record saying how much I enjoyed Three Palms. I really enjoyed Three Palms the last few years here, but there's no doubt that Underground has to be one of the best facilities that Texas has to offer. So what were your thoughts on ATV Motocross's return to Underground for the first time since 2019?
Well, first off, we had a ton of rain coming into this weekend, and everybody was kind of skeptical on how the track was going to be, but those new owners, the Allison family, they had that track sealed in perfect for the rain we got. And by the time 12 o'clock came around Friday morning and first round of practice started, those bikes were coming off the track clean. They weren't even muddy, weren't doused in mud and everything. And track came out great. And then worked the track for Saturday. Again, we had a great track. Turned out to be a great track, especially for racing and tight battles all around the track. It wasn't one area you could pass. You could pass all the way around this track. It was such a wide track, worked out perfect.
Yeah, that the way I remember Underground, it's always been There's been a lot of split lines, right? There's a lot of passing options. And then with that rain, and it seems like every time we go down there, it rains.
Oh, yes.
We've always dealt with rain at Underground every single year. But what that does, because it's got kind of that sandy base to it, it makes it really rough, and it makes it, a real man's track. Not only are these, big hits and big jumps and triple jumps and quad jumps and this, that, and the other thing, but also, it gets so sandy and rough that it's a man's track and makes, for really great racing, of course. So we saw, that was one of the things coming into the weekend, and we'll get into this, but, like for a guy like Chad Wienen, who's trying to battle through this collarbone and all this stuff, and Kevin Saar with his back. And I mean, we're monitoring some guys that were a little busted up, and I'm thinking, of all the tracks, this might be a tough one. It's going to be rough, and it's going to be rugged. It's going to demand a lot from these guys. And the track ended up being awesome. And then obviously, ultimately, we see some awesome performances from a lot of great racers on Saturday and Sunday.
Oh yeah, it was great track, and especially the pro section that they threw in there, and they had the Dragon's Back, which where it was really made the difference for some of these guys. They would come over this tabletop that was super quick speed and slow down for this Dragon's Back, and then right into the speed again.
Yeah, that's awesome. You see those technical things are where you'll see how good some of these pro guys are. I mean, they're obviously amazing at what they do, the best of the best. So heading into the weekend, we were following some of these storylines. We're following a handful of storylines heading into the weekend. There are SSI Decal's top 5 storylines, and entering Underground, the 5 that we were following, this is kind of starting with here, which rookie would be the first to earn a top 10. We didn't see that this weekend. I actually have a text in to Harv Whipple, the AMA official, heading into our episode here, because I don't know if Kevin Saar counts as a rookie or not. If so, he got a top 10 at the opening round at Daytona. So he is a rookie here in the States, but being like a European, champion and stuff, I don't know if he counts as a towards the rookie of the year thing. But either way, kind of when I've been saying rookies, I'm thinking of our Pro-Am guys from a year ago. So we'll break down those guys as we get into the racing. We didn't see a top 10 this weekend, but like I said, we'll discuss them a little bit more as we go. Storyline number 4 was more revolved around Jeffrey Rastrelli. Jeffrey's been rock solid all season long so far. That continued in Texas. We'll elaborate on that shortly, because it was much of the same this past weekend. Jeffrey's been so strong all season long. Just awesome to watch how good he's been. So we'll discuss him a little more. I could say probably the same for my storyline number 3, because this one is Logan Stanfield. It was, monitoring if Logan would get into the top 5 for the second time of his career, matching, maybe with a 5th, matching his career best finish. Didn't see that this weekend, but he's been awesome. He's been awesome so far this season. Every moto, every race out, he's been great. He didn't quite break into the top 5, like I said, but he did continue to show that he's taken a major step forward here in 2023. Storyline number 2 we've been watching would be Bryce Ford. Would that first career win at Gatorback kind of catapult him to a new level? I don't know if I would say that necessarily, but he was consistently great all day on Saturday. How good was he going to be? He was exactly what I kind of expected of him. Like, we're seeing so much consistency from him now. And earlier in his career, that wasn't necessarily the case. But I mean, on Saturday, he spent, both motos, basically the entirety of both motos, pressuring Chad Wienen, right, for that, runner-up spot. He was awesome. And I said on social media, I kind of hinted at the fact that for some guys, and they say this in dirt bike racing too, that red plate, that points leader red plate can weigh heavy for a rider. And I don't think we saw even a stitch of that on Saturday with Bryce. I mean, he was as consistent as could be, was right there in both motos, pushing for that number 2 spot. I thought he was awesome. So I'll let you jump in there and talk about your fellow Texas native there with Bryce Ford, but he was awesome. Like, I was super, super impressed with the way he handled, the whole red plate thing, because to this point, we've seen everything from him. We've seen him get hole shots, lead a lap, finish on the podium. He's won some of these other specialty events. Now he wins that overall and a moto at Gatorback. So the only thing we hadn't seen from him yet was carrying that red plate. And I thought he handled it masterfully. Like, he looked awesome on Saturday. I was super impressed with the way that he didn't get ahead of himself. He didn't act uncharacteristic or anything like that. He did exactly as we expected. He was awesome on Saturday. So I'll let you jump in there and talk about Bryce for a second.
Oh yeah, he was super consistent, and you could see all through Moto 1 and Moto 2, he was right there behind Chad, and Chad was really trying to hold Bryce off, and he did just that. Bryce ended up with that third, and he's been so consistent. He's been on every podium this season, which is crazy to think about. And he had that red plate, and he didn't let that get the best of him. He was consistent every time he was out there, and he was making those smart line choices. He kept Rastrelli behind him, and Rastrelli was right there behind him. That second, third, and fourth, all three of those, especially coming through that rhythm section before the finish, they would be right behind each other.
And that's a really tough place to be in if you're Bryce, because when you're trying to make a move on the guy in second, who's Chad Wienen, you know, you might be opening up, you know, yourself to getting overtaken by the dude behind you. And he never let that bother him. Like he hung in there the whole race. So we'll get into each moto specifically as we go here, but I was really impressed by Bryce. And then our number one storyline of the SSI Decals top 5 storylines that we were monitoring going into this race was Chad Wienen, of course. Would Chad return just 3 weeks removed from breaking his collarbone? And Aliza, you know, not only was he in attendance, not only was he ready to compete, but his gutty performance on Saturday was legendary to me. I mean, like I posted on social media, he's a certified badass. I don't know what else to say about the guy. What says you?
He was the most amazing performance of the year, in my opinion, that we've seen so far. I mean, he just had that collarbone plated, and 3 weeks later, he came out and did a 2-2 performance at Underground and held everybody else no problem, kept consistent laps, smart decisions, jumping everything like everybody else. That was truly impressive.
Unreal. So when qualifying is going down at the start of the day and waiting for, you know, his name to pop up and see where he's going to stack in there. And I think that, you know, he first qualifies, you know, somewhere near 10th or 8th or something like that. And I'm like, okay, you know, so he's doing okay. And then I figured, okay, one of these laps, he's going to put in a heater just to see how he can, you know, if he can do it kind of thing. Cause you never know. I mean, I know he did a little riding coming into the weekend, but like he might've needed to prove it to himself. Right. And then he comes out and he's P3 the rest of the qualifiers, and was just super impressed with the way he handled it. You know, I told him going in, when I kind of got the feeling, we texted a little bit back and forth, and I got the feeling that he was going to give it a go. Because he had said that, you know, there's an opportunity for me to come back pretty fast from this. So I knew that, you know, he's going to plate the thing or whatever. And I said, man, if you get back out there, let alone do well. But if you get back out there, that's just, you know, another chapter in the story of your legendary career. And I think that's exactly what we saw on Saturday. I mean, that's just another like legendary feather in his cap. You know, I know, and we compared this a little bit to what Joel did years ago. It was 8 or 9 years ago now when he came back and played at his broken collarbone and got right back out there. That's just what makes these guys some of the greatest ever. Is like Chad Wienen looked like, I know he wasn't quite maybe on his pace, but to be P2 in both motos, second overall, like, you know, to the naked eye, you might have not thought anything was wrong with the guy. And that's just amazing to me when you think about like what he must have endured, you know, midweek after Gatorback. You know, it was Tuesday or Wednesday when he got the thing plated, and then, you know, he's got to heal up a little bit and hopefully feel a little better, and then get on the quad, and then probably try to train a little bit, and then go to the races, and then execute so perfectly on Saturday. I thought that you could kind of see through what he said on the podium and what he posted on social media that he might have even surprised himself a little bit that he went out there and executed so well. But like you said, story of the year. I mean, what an awesome story. And like I said, another legendary chapter to his absolutely legendary career. I mean, this is a ride that we won't forget.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. You put that perfectly. I mean, he just surprised everybody, and he proved those who doubted him. He proved the haters wrong. He was like, no, I am here, and I am here to race.
Yeah, exactly. And Aliza, he was only outdone by one man. Joel Hetrick couldn't have had a better day, couldn't have gone any better on Saturday for the defending champ. He goes perfect 1-1 on the day to regain the points lead for him. Dude is in a league of his own. Going through the pack, you know, kind of that his urgency in Moto 1, kind of going through the pack at the start of Moto 2 to get up to the front there. He gets out to a lead, and then it's like he's just cruising. man, he's got an extra gear over everybody right now. I mean, Joel Hetrick, you could say the same stuff every weekend, but he is on point right now. Him and that quad. I was talking to Jay Goebel from Impact after the weekend, kind of debriefing on Saturday evening. And he's like, yeah, like Joel doesn't really, we don't really touch anything on the quad, even though the track is rough. He's just so dialed in right now. It just feels like he can do no wrong.
He was consistent every single lap. And he's been coming out and he's done really well this year. We saw that from Joel last year. He was getting really consistent. He was really comfortable on that Phoenix machine, and coming out this year, especially underground, that track, how it developed throughout the day, it didn't bother him at all. He rode so well, so clean, so consistent.
Yeah, he sure did. And I think, I know that they talked about it a little bit over the weekend, and I know that we knew that he was a little busted up following the Gator background, so I don't want to sleep on that completely. They said he had a hematoma on his elbow and some stuff that he was battling through there. So it's not like he was in perfect health necessarily either leading up to this round, but you obviously couldn't tell that over the weekend. I mean, he was so spot on. But going into a little bit more detail there with his day, so he qualified nearly 2 seconds faster than the rest of the field. In Moto 1, Joel grabs the whole shot, followed by Chad Wienen and Bryce Ford, like you touched on a little bit earlier. And ultimately, that's how they would finish. But there was a lot of great racing going on because, as Joel is checking out front, like we said, I mean, Chad, Bryce, and Jeffrey were on top of each other for basically the entire first moto there. And we would end up seeing a very similar picture in Moto 2, but like that battle for second, third, and fourth was like the battle everybody was watching, I feel like, in Pro Moto 1 there. And it was kind of can't miss racing there. I know we didn't end up seeing any of those positions change, but I mean, one hiccup by any of those guys would have gave up a position, and we just didn't see it. I think that speaks to how good this class is right now. I mean, you saw it this weekend for the first time, this year or whatever in person, but that front of that pack and the pack entirely, but the front of that pack is so freaking good right now. And for those guys to not make a mistake and hold on, 2, 3, 4 for that race there, it was fun to watch for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Chad was right there in second, Bryce literally right behind him, and Rastrelli right there. And it was funny, the first moto, Bryce, Jeffrey, and Nick Janusa all had the same gear set on. Okay, and they were all right behind each other. So you just see the uniforms going by, and you had the red plate, and then Rastrelli and Janusa. And
yeah.
I mean, that FXR gear looked really cool on the three of those, especially battling it out that whole race. But each of them were right on top of each other, and they were ready if any of them made a mistake. But they kept it clean and consistent.
Yeah, I kept thinking that maybe somebody was going to be able to do something in, like you said, that rhythm section before the finish. It's not necessarily like, it's not a roll or whoop section like it used to be. It's more of a, like Joel was jumping in and then tripling and then like doubling or something. It's more of a rhythm section there. And I kept thinking somebody was going to make a move there, and just didn't happen. Those guys kept being spot on lap after lap after lap. So that kind of speaks to how good they were. So Chad Wienen's starts were obviously key on this weekend in Texas, which really helped him nurse that freshly repaired collarbone there as he ripped the whole shot in Moto 2. He was followed by Bryce Ford early, then Joel Hetrick, and it took until lap 3 for Hetrick to overcome Ford and then rip the lead away from Wienen. And then after that, like I kind of hinted at there a moment ago, it was basically a mirror image of the first moto with Joel Hetrick cruising out front. Chad Wienen is controlling the second spot, and then both Bryce Ford and Jeffrey were pressuring him throughout. But with 2 laps to go, Bryce nearly made the move on Chad, would have been right in front of the scoring tower there, but they got side by side and Chad Wienen was able to hold on to it. But it made it really interesting there. Bryce made it really interesting there for a second as, they got neck and neck, and I thought he was going to make the move, but Chad held on and would ultimately hang on for the P2 spot there. But that was like the closest hold your breath moment there of that second moto, was if Bryce was going to get by, because that would have been for second overall, and Chad was able to hold on to it. But another really, similar race to Moto 1, but just because we weren't seeing tons of passes back and forth didn't mean we weren't seeing a bunch of great racing out there.
Right. And there was one moment, I can't remember exactly which lap it was, but like you said, they were side by side coming out of the turn, getting ready for the single that was right there. They were side by side, and Chad just clicked a gear just a second quicker than Bryce and got it through it and kept that second.
Yeah. If you're thinking of the same thing the same time I am, there was, just 2 laps left. I think that was the 2-lap board lap. And Chad just has a way about him where he can keep those rear tires on the ground, man. And he can just power forward, and looked like maybe that's what was going on there. But awesome. Another awesome second moto there. But kind of let's go down the results kind of sheet here. I like to do that and kind of so we can touch on all the guys. So obviously, like we said, Joel Hetrick, he goes 1-1 for the overall. He reclaims his points lead in the process. And Aliza, obviously a great performance for him on Saturday. And now, Joel Hetrick has probably got his eyes wide open and kind of licking his lips, getting ready to head to High Point, because that's one of his best tracks on the circuit for him, his old stomping grounds there in PA, but also those dry, hard, dry slick tracks are what he really enjoys. That's what High Point is, obviously. And I think, he's obviously going to be stoked about getting his red plate back. We know that he didn't want to give that up at all this season. He did for this round. Obviously he's got it back. And now I would think he's going to look to, keep pressure on these guys, keep his boot on the throat of these guys as they head to High Point. But awesome performance for him. And I'm sure he's going to look to string some more wins together, I would think.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially High Point. He's always been really good there, super consistent throughout the years. Even when he made the switch from Honda to Yamaha, that was still his track.
Absolutely. So Chad Wienen, like we talked about at length already, legendary performance for him, 2-2, second overall, but we couldn't tell the story of this race day without Chad Wienen joining us. So here is the 8-time champ. All right, guys, I'm here with the man who had to be the most talked about rider at Underground, brought to you by SSI Decals. SSI Decals, your way. Get started today at ssidecals.com and use code DIGGINGDEEP10 for 10% off at checkout. I am proud to welcome longtime SSI Decals rider, your 8-time series champion, fresh out of the operating room and right to the podium, Mr. Chad Wienen. Welcome back to Digging Deep, Chad. Thanks so much for being here, pal.
Cody, hey, thanks a lot, man. Big weekend after a low weekend, so it's nice to get back to a decent form to come out and perform. And man, I was happy to be back to the races in one piece.
What a performance for you this weekend, obviously. What a rebound it was. Another unforgettable moment in a legendary career for you. These last couple of weeks had to be a whirlwind. So give me a lowdown a little bit. Like, take me kind of back to the beginning. Like, what has this been like for you? You and Joel get together in the first corner at Gatorback. Do you know you have a broken collarbone right away? Like, take me back to the beginning of this whole journey you've been on the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, just that whole first turn incident was, like in a way it was bad, but also, it was good in a way that I could get put back together. But, with that incident, like I say, it's 2 guys going for it and they want the same piece of real estate. None of us really wanted to give. Man, just coming into that turn, like Joel kind of carried the front end a little long into the turn. And once he set it down, I really sucked up like next to him. And right then and there, like there was not much room left on the inside, and I started going up over like the windrow, and then we made contact, and then Joel, I seen him like separate from me, and he went tumbling really hard.
Yeah.
And then once we kind of separated, I felt like I was going to ride away from it, and then all of a sudden I'm on the ground as well. And I didn't understand what had happened until I watched the video, like how I got like thrown off. But yeah, once I got up, I knew like I got the wind knocked out of me pretty hard. I didn't really have any time to really brace myself for it. Like I said, I kind of felt like I was going to ride away from it, and then boom, I'm on the ground pretty hard. And yeah, I got up. I knew there's definitely something wrong with me. It was a struggle to get my hands up on my right arm up on the bars, and I was like, man, like maybe this pain will go away, as I get going. And it progressively got worse, and as I was riding, and I could feel some stuff moving around in there that wasn't supposed to be moving. And when I got done with the race, I pretty much knew that I had broken my collarbone, is what it felt like.
Okay.
And little walk over to the medic, and they confirmed that it was definitely a broken collarbone. They suggested that I go to the hospital. Like they told me that they would fix it. So that's what I was like, man, I'm gonna go and get this thing fixed so I get back on the mend as quick as I can.
Yeah, for sure.
And instead of going out for that next moto, which I felt like I could have done that, but I would have been rolling around like I was in the first moto, and maybe I accumulated a point or two or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Figuring. But
Yeah.
I was thinking like more into the future to get my shoulder fixed, and I get to the ER and they're at a high trauma alert and they weren't able to fix it. So I was there for a couple hours, and they sent me on my way, put me in a sling, and I started making plans to try and get my shoulder fixed, from there.
Got it. Yeah. So kind of recapping that first corner incident. I mean, rarely is a first corner incident anything, but like you said, it was just two guys going for a spot there. And then after that, you had everybody talking because you were still cruising around at a relatively, good pace, quick pace there, still jumping some of the bigger hits on the track there with a broken freaking clavicle bone. What was your motivation to keep going at that point? Like, I guess you must have figured, accumulate a couple points and assess after the moto.
Yeah.
Were you reluctant to go to the ambulance after the moto? Like, man, I don't want to know, or take me through kind of your thinking, during the moto and then right after.
Yeah, like, during the moto, like I was just kind of doing what I could. It was painful, but like a lot of the jumps where you had like a smooth transitions, from takeoff to landing, it wasn't too bad because it wasn't like an abrupt hit, but there's a couple of them that were pretty like, big takeoff to a flat landing.
Sure.
And so I just kind of tried to like manage it. And, honestly, like my motivation out there was that, Joel was able to, get back up and go fight in the pack. And I was in the back of the pack and I couldn't really do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, it is a long season, and, I got to try and accumulate the points that I can to try and manage what has just happened.
Of course. I know in the spur of the moment, I guess I didn't mean, what was your motivation, right? I know how you're wired, but it's that battle as an athlete. Like, man, I know I'm not right, but I'm not going to, like, I never quit, so, so I'm sure that's what it was. And, so second moto, you're obviously not at the track for that first gate drop missed since 2011, right? I mean, that's kind of a hard thing to wrap your head around too. What were your feelings with that? Obviously, I know you wanted to get on the mend as quickly as possible, but it also, I mean, couldn't feel great about that either. Like, that had to be weird sensation.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't feel great, like sitting in the hospital and then, 4:00 runs around and it's the time where I would normally be on track. And especially when they told me when they wouldn't fix it there, I was like, man, I could just be there, just doing that. And, but, honestly, like, it happened for a reason, and, it's going to test my grit throughout the year and see what we can do. And, I'm mentally in a good place, even coming off of that. And, I think I'm, 3 weeks today from my operation. So it's like, I feel like I'm way farther ahead than anybody would have expected. Even myself, I hoped where I would be. And, I just put my head in a good place. And, it's like you said, I really don't have a give up, piece in my body. And that's the way I'm going to continue to live my life.
Of course, man. Obviously, hindsight being 2020, you played all the right cards, you pushed all the right buttons. It's crazy to find yourself where you are now with everything that you endured in the last few weeks here. So you get to the hospital, you X-ray it. Was that the plan right away, was to plate it? Like, I'm assuming everybody realized it was platable right away with the break that it was.
Yeah. And like the way the bone was like poking at my skin, I could tell that it was definitely like, out of place and stuff like that. And, me thinking, I haven't done this before, but, I've had friends that have done this, and the plating is, the way to get back as soon as possible. And
absolutely.
As long as you can put up with the pain and do all that, I think that, a lot of people have said that you can come back from this pretty quick. And
Mm-hmm.
it hasn't been like too painful. I've separated my shoulders, both of them.
Yep.
And the AC separation feels like it's a lot more painful than this.
Yep.
Just because it's more like in your joint, and this is a bone,
Mm-hmm.
but it's now pieced together. But yeah, it's no easy task. But man, there's other riders out there that I compete against, and they've had a rougher go than me, that they might not be able to return this year. And I'm pretty dang fortunate to miss one moto instead of several.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Like I said, it's just another chapter to what's an unbelievable story when we talk about your career. So how do you determine who's going to have the surgery on this thing then? Like in the days after this thing happens, like I believe you went up to Pennsylvania, right, to have it done. So,
Yeah.
So how do you find somebody to do it, and how does that process work?
Yeah. So I just went, talking to a couple friends, like down here in Florida, like they weren't going to have a consultation till Thursday. And that was, about 5 days after the crash and the break. And,
yeah.
And I'm thinking in my head that every day matters, every hour matters. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, I can't really wait that long. And, I checked with some friends and my doctor, back home, and my chiropractor here as well, just talking with them. And then also like I took, Chris Borich came over to, support me and watch the races. And I talked to him on the way home, and he's like, man, like I have a guy in Pennsylvania, a friend of ours and a friend of a friend. And he gave me his number, and I spoke to him that night. And he's like, yeah, like I can fit you in on, Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, like let's try and pursue this. And we started looking at flights to make it up for me to fly up there. And we had plans as a family to go to Disney and stay for a couple days after the event. And so like I'll backtrack just a little bit. Thomas gave us a ride to the hospital. Thomas
Yep.
Brown. And
That's what he told us on the show here. Yep.
yeah, he gave us a ride to the hospital, and very grateful for his friendship with that, and tough time with that. And we got back from the hospital. He drove my motor home, and he was going to drive it back to Daytona, which is other side of the coast of what he lives on. And
Okay.
we were driving back, and we were probably about maybe like a half hour on the road, and we already had these plans to go to Disney to stay and camp there. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, honestly, I cannot do anything while I'm, it's no difference of me being at home with a broken collarbone or being at Disney at the campground or whatever. So we just decided to follow through with that and not let this wreck the plans of what we had with the family. And
yeah,
so pursued that. And then I flew Monday night up to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to get the operation the next morning at about 8:30 in the morning.
Okay. So being that this doctor was, connected to Borich, so connected to ATV racing in a way, I'm assuming from the get-go, doctor was on board that, you can come back in a couple weeks here. So, tell me like what those 2.5 weeks were like of heel time before Texas, because I believe, if my calculations are right, you rode basically like 2 weeks to the day after the break. So the comeback, this whole thing happened very quickly. So take me through what the 2.5 weeks were like leading up to the race. I'm sure it was baby steps and, kind of feeling things out and starting to, almost convince yourself that this is doable. Tell me what that was like. That had to be a lot of thoughts going on through that time.
Oh, for sure. And I got back, I got that operation done, flew back home down here in Florida. And then the first night was pretty terrible with trying to sleep.
Okay.
Just like laying on my back. I got my back sleeper, which is fine, but like laying on my back, and then you're really stretching, like everything's kind of falling flat, and that was like super painful. And
Sure.
So I just had to figure out how to sleep and, rest that way. But, it was straight into, getting treatments. And, I have a doctor down here that he did some laser treatments. And, I was taking like calcium, anything to try and
Mm-hmm.
help the bones grow and heal up as fast as I can. And the
Sure.
icing, there was some definite inflammation and stuff like that, and doing all that stuff. But I was on a stationary bike within, it was like the like 2 days after, actually a day after the operation. So just kind of, anything to do with the lower part of the body, I was trying to keep that strong and let
Yep.
the upper part of the body rest. And then I kind of took it as, I did that for a couple days, started riding my road bike, eventually back on a roller, pretty light, and then mountain biking, and then took that to riding, which was about 2 weeks after the crash. And
Yep.
what was it, 10 days post-op?
As you're going to the track, gearing up, get on your quad. I mean, you had to have that, kind of hold your breath feeling of like, okay, this is, here's the moment. Like, is it going to be doable or not?
Yeah, I mean, like I felt like mentally confident that I could do it. It's just like getting out there, and actually like my chiropractor down here and my doctor were both like, you need to be on the machine. You can be on the machine just riding, like turns and stuff like that. Maybe not a whole lot of jumps,
Okay.
within those 10 days, which I liked because, they were very progressive, like, we don't
Clearly.
want you in a sling. We don't want you in a sling. We want you, when you need to rest it, put in the sling, but like, we want you moving this thing so that you don't like lose too much strength in it, and
Mm-hmm.
get you back as quick as we can. And, I gave them the heads up, what my plans were, and they made their adjustments, what they needed to do, whether it was the operation and then also like treatment wise, and how aggressive I wanted to be and how much I could take, when they were giving me treatments and stuff. So we were all on the same page, which was, really, really cool to be like that in tune with your doctor. And you
Yeah.
know and getting phone calls, a couple times a week, see how my progression's going with my doctor that did the operation too. So like, they were really in it as well, and they understood, that this is something that's really important to me.
That's huge. That's a huge part of it, because here I'm
Yeah.
thinking, we've all had those interactions with, medical professionals that are like, hey, like you shouldn't do this kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that was a major question of mine, was how you got aligned with people that were totally on board with this. So it sounds like, again, like that was key to this whole thing going down. So you
Yeah.
get, you baby step your way into this. It's progression. It's everybody's on board. So then going into Saturday morning, I'm assuming there still had to be some question, because now,
Oh yeah.
there's obviously big jumps at underground. It's a rough track. The saturation in the track made it rough. All these things, stuff that you would typically love, obviously wasn't necessarily ideal for you this weekend. So, we're all holding our breath. Like we knew you were going there. We knew you were going to give it a go. And then, we see it pop up in qualifying, wherever it was, somewhere around the top 10. And then didn't take long, and there you are in the top 3. And you probably proved it to yourself at that point. But that was my question: is did you have to go out there and do it and prove it to yourself that, hey, I mean, this is like game on?
Yeah. And like, kind of going back on, like me getting out and riding for the first time like that.
Sure.
That was like very baby steps. Like, I did a turn track first, and really felt that out. And I really took my time, like not going out there and like doing one sight lap and then dropping the hammer. It was like,
Yeah.
I did like 6, 7, 8 laps of just like slowly progressing, and see if I feel like any sharp pains or anything like that, where I'm like, yeah, that's my limit. Like, that's all I can do today. Or,
Sure. Yeah.
if I could keep going. But, with me being able to get like that first day, and then I took a day off, and then I did, day 2 or 3 back to back, and like each day was like a milestone of like getting myself back to where I was feeling more comfortable. Like I rode, these tracks that I was riding, like the first day, like the track was pretty rough, and I was like, man, like I should be riding on something a little bit smoother than this, like my first day back. And I just I'm glad that I did now that, because it probably progressed me like that even a little bit more to what I was going to face on like Saturday.
Sure.
That was at Underground. And like watching practice on Friday and then walking the track, I was like, man, this track is like a sponge. It's going to be like one of those tracks that's like a really grabby, like try to rip the bars out of your hands type feels. And
right.
I'm not going to say that I was worried, but I was like, I knew I had that in the back of my head, but like, I need to go out there and make sure that I just take my time and get a feel for this track because I feel like if I got in a bad situation, like I probably wouldn't have the strength to maybe correct it. I'll be like, I'm along for the ride type feeling.
Yep.
And, getting on the track, taking it easy for a couple laps, like a lot easier than I ever really do. But like, I was still like popping the jumps, I was making sure I got the jumps down and like kind of waiting for the track to maybe get run in a couple spots. It was still pretty wet. And I, was able to get like 2 clean laps during that session. And my first heater lap, I came around, I was in P2, and I'm like, okay, like I guess we got a little something. And then I came around the next time and we were in P3, and I'm like, honestly, I'm okay with, I'm definitely okay with that. Anything inside like the top 5, I feel like is good pickings for our whole shot. And,
right.
We were able to get through our qualifying sessions and kind of lead ourselves into the motos.
Yeah, man, executed so perfectly. And then obviously the motos come. So we know, you got some laps in you, but obviously racing situations are a little bit less controlled. So at least in my mind, it's like, okay, he's got something. We'll see what it is. And obviously great hole shots assisted you exponentially on this day. P2, P1 respectively off the start, pair of runner-up finishes. Tell me what that feeling was like during the motos. It seemed like maybe even as the race day wore on, as the motos wore on, it was almost like you got better, you got more of a flow, and you had to be ecstatic with the way that it went. I feel like jumping to the end of the races, then the end of the race day, I feel like you could see the pride on your face. Like, man, how perfectly executed, not just this moto was, this race day was, but obviously the last 2.5 to 3 weeks was just perfectly executed on your part. So tell me about the way that the motos went.
Yeah, like the whole shots were key. I mean, I didn't spend like, it's weird. Like, I rode, those 3 days prior, but like I touched on starts every day, but I didn't like overly just nail my starts. I was out there trying to get seat time. And, coming into the weekend, it was like, I knew how crucial starts were going to be. And I nailed, very good starts, especially the first moto, like, because that's the first time I've started, with that pack, and the last time I did, I ended up on on the ground. So it's like,
right. Yeah.
I didn't have like any like mental stuff going on, like scared, being, afraid of what could happen. And, once those revs go up, like you kind of forget about anything else that has happened, and you're kind of zoned in on what you're doing. And gated really well, came out second, and Joel was ripping around, and he showed that. And circulating, doing my laps, like midway through, I felt like I created a gap, and I was riding more comfortable without any riders on me. And then the last 3 laps of that moto were very tough, and they were mental. And because I haven't put myself in a stressful position like that in over 3 weeks. It was probably even longer than that. It's probably even Daytona,
right.
The last time I did that. So it's like, haven't been able to really put myself in that kind of spot for a while. And I just kept telling myself, give it one more lap and just finish this next lap, and then go on to the next lap, and not overlooking, be like, I got 3-4 more laps left. I was trying to keep myself in a good headspace and being present of what was going on in front of me.
Yeah, executed so perfectly. Then Moto 2, I mean, mirror images. I mean, you started second, first, second Moto, but then after that, I mean, basically like the Motos almost mirrored each other. They really did. And that late in that second Moto, you know, there's a dogfight. Like you and Bryce were damn near side by side, and you do such a great job. I mean, even coming off this collarbone injury, all this stuff, you do such a great job of, like you always do, getting those rear tires to the ground and powering down. And that's what you did to hold on to that spot there. It seemed like you come out of that finish line corner side by side, get down, and it's choppy and you're hurting, I'm sure, and all these things, but executed just like you always do, put the power to the ground and hold on to that spot. And that was like a pivotal moment for me. Like, man, this dude is just fighting. He's not gonna give anybody an inch on this day. And just so cool to see the way that went down.
Yeah. I mean, man, just ripping that whole shot second moto. And like, I really surprised myself. And I came around that first turn, I'm going like under the bridge, and I'm like, holy smokes. Like, I am leading this race. I'm leading this race where a lot of people, you know, even thought that like, he's going to be out there just cruising, circulating, and not really racing a whole lot. And I was like, man, let's see what we got for a couple laps. And I put in like 2 good like heater laps. And I got, you know, once I felt the pressure from Joel, like, we came over like the step up triple, kind of like heading towards the back. And, I could hear him applying a lot of pressure, and I opened up my line to really I couldn't fight with him, and that wasn't my battle that day. And I knew that, you know, going in there, that how hard it is to beat Joel on a 100% Chad, you know. So being able to do that and not, you know, put myself in too big of a hole early on and exert myself, where I just kind of tagged along with Joel for, you know, a couple laps, and, you know, tried to learn from him a little bit. Cause, you know, he's riding at a high level, and I was, you know, I'm coming back from a low level a little bit at that point. But, you know, honestly, I, you know, rode within my head, and, just knowing what my limits were. You know, a lot of the turns I'm coming into, and I'm like, I should be rolling on the gas right now, and I'm not on the gas for several, you know, paces forward. And but I mean, my head is in a good place with that, and just my strength was, you know, pretty low with my right arm, but executing that day, and then, you know, getting late in that second moto, like, gosh, like, you know, your body's telling you like it's time to relax. It's time to like let go of the tension and relinquish a little bit of like stress. But like mentally, I was just telling myself that you got to do this, Chad. You got to finish it. And, you know, you've worked pretty dang hard to get where you're at in this moto, and just finish it off. And I kind of took that, there like 3 laps from the end. I call it like a rest lap to allow myself to prepare to battle with Bryce, because I could feel him coming. Like, he was holding a good pace all race, and I was starting to fade a little bit. And once I felt him kind of get to me, like through that rhythm, like coming up to the finish line, and that inside after the finish line, that was like eating me up pretty bad. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do through it. So like knowing the riders that I was racing against, and you know, I opened up my line to the outside, because like I just felt like I was going to be able to get, like you said, like a good slingshot coming out of that turn, and I could drive like pretty hard down that straightaway, which it might not have been as fast like in the turn, but out of the turn I was gonna drive really well. And I felt like once I got to that point and I was kind of rested a little bit where I could put on a good fight, I put on like a good burner lap to try and get back away from Bryce, to maybe like, you know, like mentally break him, you know, to be like, it's one thing to catch somebody, but it's a whole nother deal to try and pass them. And I know that, you know, from experience, that
of course
I was going to try and break away a little bit, and it worked out where I had, you know, more of a smooth sailing for that final lap, and able just to focus on, hitting those marks, because the track was, I don't think we give the track enough credit how gnarly and rough and ruddy it was.
Yeah.
It was, we haven't touched anything like that in quite a while, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. That straightaway where you're referencing, where the inside was so train track, ruddy, rough, and you hit the outside, it looked, it was smooth as glass, but you had to go around the outside. And then that gets you on that straightaway where to the right where you were, it was a little bit smoother, but man, that straightaway looked freaking nasty, which was a perfect representation of how rough and draggy, grabby, like you said earlier, the track was. And yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, that was maybe not quite Redbud level or whatever, but pretty damn close, like it was one of those tracks that you would have been salivating about normally and wasn't quite there, but to manage it the way that you did, to be that in tune with your body and know this is exactly what I got to do to be P2 on this day. After the moto, you're sitting there and kind of resting a little bit and put your head down, and then you put your head up and show off a genuine smile. And you could see that from your family, from Danica, from Michael, your mechanic. I mean, everybody. It was really, really cool to see that. I think in that moment you could see, man, like we've been through the ringer the last couple of weeks. And like you said, I mean, people have had it worse. But for you to execute it so well, get back to the races, P2 on the day, execute so well throughout on that day, like, I mean, that's as close as you're ever going to get to that winning feeling without winning, I'm assuming. Like, I feel like it just couldn't have went any better for you. And I was stoked to see that smile on your face, because it was like, man, we did it.
Yeah. It's definitely a roller coaster that we rode, the past month. And it, like, finishing off that race, like I put myself in a dark place, like those last couple laps of, like put myself in the red zone. And
yeah,
once you cross the finish line, that feeling of achievement, I felt, more excitement, more joy, and more relief, crossing the line in second than I have maybe finishing first and, in a long time. It's kind of like you're riding the wave of, your ups and downs. And this was a pretty big down, and and unsure of how I was going to come out of it or anything. So, like,
right.
To be able to put it together like that, it sure did feel like a win in our book, and maybe something that was like, more of like unbelievable of how we were able to pull it off.
Right. And I say to people all the time, this is something that I say in my day-to-day life, is the crappy days help us appreciate the good ones. And, your timetable of those few weeks there couldn't have been a better representation of that. I mean, obviously the being in that dark place, down in that hole, not knowing what's going to happen, to catapulting yourself to the top of the roller coaster, after executing a P2 day there is just awesome. So, what does the next, 2.5 weeks look like leading up to High Point then, Chad? Is it mostly rest? I mean, when can you get back to what as normal at this point?
Yeah, like I know, like, leading these last couple days have been like, I've been pretty sore,
okay,
like in my shoulder and stuff like that, and even the rest of my body. Like I put it through, some pretty heavy stuff the last, that race day and stuff. And I'm gonna try and at least rest a couple more days, and maybe not use my shoulder as much, but like try to stay sharp on my other trainings that I can do. And because I need to try and keep progressing, but also I need to keep resting my arm, just to try and not let it feel like that after the next race or trainings, because it's pretty dang sore right now. But I mean, it's overwhelming, on, the part of, just the reach out of like people that, that have reached out, and their beliefs in me, and, their thanks, and, their, the words that they've given me, it really propels me. And it means a lot to have that, that backing from maybe even people weren't even fans of mine. They just appreciate that I'm, what I'm going through and what I'm willing to push myself through. And, that doesn't go unnoticed. And, even a lot of the riders that I compete against, a lot of them have, reached out and said, good things. And it's not because of, we definitely know it's not because of the money, it's because of the love and the drive that we have to go out and compete. And it's something that is, worth more than that.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't become the Chad Wienen as we know you without that drive. It's definitely not about anything else except you got this crazy, this crazy nature about you, all this motivation and all this to give, right, to the sport that we have and sport that we love. And yeah, I mean, again, like I started this conversation with, I mean, this is just another added chapter to what has been an unbelievable story of your career. I mean, this is just another feather in your cap, but yeah, it's amazing. Like what happens with, explain to me, because I've never had a plated collarbone. So do you leave that plate in there or does it eventually come out?
I mean, I could see myself, like, they want it to stay in for at least a year. I could see myself
Okay.
like leaving it in for that year, and I could see myself taking out because it's kind of a high contact area where,
right,
you put anything over your shoulder, you feel it. Like we're driving down the road with a seatbelt over it, and it's very uncomfortable.
got it.
With that. So I could see myself doing it. We're gonna kind of see how things go. They say they give me, words of wisdom that it's stronger, and I could see that with it being in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the recovery time would be after that. It depends on. I could see myself taking it out after racing, maybe leaving it in, for the racing part. But
Got it. Yeah, it was one of those things that obviously you're early in this. That's not, I just didn't know if a person leaves it or takes it out. I've heard both sides of that story. So so yeah, that's interesting going forward. But Chad, you're a legend. I know I got accused of making everything about 44, but you couldn't tell the story of Underground 2023 without talking to you. So like I said on the internet with one of our posts, you're a certified badass. I'm grateful to have witnessed it. It'll be something I never forget. And obviously you and your family the same way. And we're always pulling for you, buddy. You're the man. I'm just stoked to have you on here to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And, thanks a lot for those words. It's, I enjoy this just like a lot of others do, and get to share it with my family. And that's very cool for me, right now, where I've been able to do it kind of just myself and then adding people into my family to, to share it with. And that's really special. And then, leading up until High Point, like I'm definitely not going to be quite 100% come High Point, but, we're going to try to keep progressing. I know what I did in 2.5 weeks, and I'm going to try and do that here, another leaps and bounds for, 3 weeks time. And, it's going to be a fight, and I know I'm ready for the fight. I just got to keep pushing myself and try to get back to 100% form to go out and compete at that really sharp end. And big props to the people at Underground, man. The track there was gnarly. It was a different rough, like you said, from Redbud. I would say it's a sharper rough.
Mm-hmm.
Like the bumps were more sharp. Like Redbud just gets big,
Mm-hmm.
deep, but like bumps. But there was like more sharper, more grabby type of stuff here. But man, it was enjoyable to ride. 100% Chad Wienen would have been, like you said,
Had a
salivating
field
over the
day.
track.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but being able to manage it, and I still enjoyed the track a lot. And Michael, my mechanic, we found really good ways to enjoy the day, and we handled the pressure. And we the joke between the two of us, like, we know about pressure, so we're gonna keep pushing on.
Of course you do, pal. Yeah, the one thing looking to High Point, I mean, you're not going to deal with those same conditions. There's no possible way. So yeah, it was a man's track for sure. And yeah, just an awesome story. Had to tell it here on the show. And so what's I'm assuming now that we're going up to High Point, and then kind of we're in the Midwest. So I'm assuming the commute back home to Illinois is probably coming here pretty quickly, I would think.
Yeah, that's our plan to get our basically pack up our life and move it back up north and get back home, which it'll be hopefully be really good. With hopefully the climate will start to change around a little bit up there, where it's going to be awesome riding conditions like it is in the springtime there.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to get back on the home soil there in Illinois and see all the family. And man, it's gonna be fun. We got a lot of racing left to do, and Can't wait for it.
Yeah, I can report that it's 70-ish today up here, so I'm sure it's good where you're at in Illinois there as well. When you get home, some good weather should greet you. So love this time of the year when the racing starts to head up here to the Midwest. I'm stoked about that. And obviously, again, Chad, I can't thank you enough for your time. Thanks so much for being here. Safe travels. Wishing you all the best at High Point and some good healing and all that stuff. And we'll see you again soon. Okay, pal?
All right. Sounds good, man. Thanks a lot, Cody.
Thanks so much, Chad. That's 8-time champ Chad Wienen, who finished on the podium in Texas just 21 days after breaking his collarbone, right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, brought to you by SSI Decals. Thanks so much, Chad.
Yep. Cheers, man. Bye.
See you, pal. We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. The official tire choice of Digging Deep, CST tires are the choice of ATV racing's elite on the track, in the woods, and every other terrain. CST tires swept the ATV racing world in 2022 as Joel Hetrick, Bryson Neal, and Bo Barron rode their Pulse MXR and Pulse HT tires to an ATV Pro Motocross title, GNCC XC1 Pro title, and 10th ATV Pro Works Racing title, respectively. Led by champion Joel Hetrick and podium contenders Bryce Ford, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Nick Janusa, CST's Pulse MXR tire is the most trusted tire in ATV motocross today. Available in soft and standard compounds, the Pulse MXR offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. And did I mention they have a contingency program as well? Visit shop.csttires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. The best of the best choose CST. Do you? You know we're Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, as the Yamaha YFZ450R is the official ATV of Digging Deep. In a move started by 8-time ATVMX Pro Class National Champion Chad Wienen, who with his next championship will become the winningest champion in ATV motocross history, we are living in ATV racing's YFZ450R era. Alongside Wienen, 7-time GNCC XC1 Pro ATV National Champion Walker Fowler welcomed a pair of new champions to the Yamaha Champions Club, as the podium-proven Yamaha YFZ450R proved to be the winning choice for Joel Hetrick and Bryson Neal. This unprecedented success for the YFZ450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the clear fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has resulted in a complete Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Evident by the continuation of Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program, Yamaha riders will once again cash in on payout and prize opportunities in 2023, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com. Follow Yamaha Outdoors, as well as the new Blue Crew official channel on social media, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. SSI Decals, your way. SSI Decals sets the standard with the best looking decals, graphics kits, and vinyl wraps in the industry. Established in 1947, SSI took shape as an offshoot of their parent company by doing a little work for local pro Chad Wienen. Nearly 2 decades later, and fueled by a passion for ATVs, the company has flourished into one of ATV Moto's most recognized brands. From ATV Motocross, SSI has expanded into graphics and design work for top racers in GNCC, Works Racing, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Off-Road, and more, headlined by 8-time world champion Top Fuel drag racer Clay Milliken. Whether your project is big or small, SSI Decals will make your identity stick. Get started today at SSIDecals.com and use code DIGGINGDEEP10 for 10% off at checkout. Things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their wide range of championship-winning chains. From the street to the track and everywhere in between, DID chains are designed to give you the optimal riding experience with great performance and increased chain life. Consistent to the core, pick up your box of reliability today. DID, what drives you?
We are proud to be partnered with Namura Technologies. For over 20 years, Namura has pushed the limit of value and reliability in the ATV and side-by-side market. Covering more applications than anyone in the industry, Namura's full line of cast and forged pistons, connecting rods, gasket kits, and industry-leading top-end repair kits and more have led to higher overall engine performance for your machine. Visit your local dealer or online at www.namura.com and follow along on Instagram for giveaways and exciting new products in 2023. Namura Technologies, your one-stop shop engine component supplier. We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV Components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals and cylinders, shock and suspension parts, winches, clutch kits, valves, carb kits, bearing kits, and drive chain parts, Bronco is your hard parts source for whatever you need for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world. Visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com.
All right, guys, back here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, breaking down all the action from Underground. Great to hear from Chad Wienen there. And jumping back into the rest of our coverage of the pro class, Chad was awesome there. I don't think that there's anything left to say about him. Bryce Ford, too. I mean, like we said, he was awesome. He rode awesome all day. The red plate wasn't too much for him. He was super consistent. And like you touched on, I mean, that's his third podium of the year already. And I think that, you know, as we've seen over the early stages of his pro career, you know, it was kind of the roller coaster of up and downs that were his only downfall. Like his whole shots are good. His one lap speed is good. His endurance has become a good thing. It's just maybe the lack of consistency was his only downfall. And so far this season, like he's clearly taken a step with that. I mean, not only does he seem to have gotten a step closer to those front two guys, but shoot, he's looked better than ever. And man, that number 4 looked cool with the red plate on it. So I'm sure, you know, that's something that he's going to want to get his hands back on in the future. But again, his third podium of the year for him, that's 4th overall, because he ended the season a year ago with another podium. So he's going to the line right now thinking every time, you know, that podium is his. And I think that's a valuable thing. You know, when you have that confidence, when you have that ownership over that podium spot, that's you know, that just gives you just that little bit more motivation to say, hey, I got to get by Jeffrey Rastrelli, or I got to get by Nick Janusa, or name that rider. He obviously sees that spot up there as a spot that's his. And, you know, he wants, you know, that second spot. He wants that first spot. He's not just comfortable being third. So I think we're just going to see him get better and better now, having won a moto, won a race, put together all these podiums, held the red plate. I mean, the only thing that's left for the guy to do is win a championship at some point, but I think he's well on his way to inching up closer and closer. And every one of these guys, whether it's Joel Hetrick or Chad Wienen, you know, they've all paid their dues along the way to get to where they are. And I think that that's what we're seeing Bryce do. And he's been it's not even like he's, you know, had a bunch of hardships while paying his dues. He's still doing really well and, you know, racing 2 of the greatest ever, right? I mean, think about what we're talking about if, you know, these 2 legends aren't still racing at this point. So it would, you know, kind of be Bryce Ford's show right now. So I think that what he's learning from these guys, and he said that on our show, but what he's learning from these guys is only going to help him for the duration of his career. I mean, he's taking all these things that he's watching Joel Hetrick do and Chad Wienen do. He's watching the professionalism. He joined them on Team USA, obviously. And he said, like, the stuff he's seeing them do is stuff that he's just adding to his bag of tricks. So long story short, he was awesome. He's done it all at this point. And I think we're just going to see all this stuff that he's done, just adding to his bag. He's just going to keep getting that much better and that much better and that much better. And that's going to be really exciting for ATV racing fans going forward.
Oh, for sure. And I remember when he first got into the pro ranks and all of those guys were fighting for that third, and he's learned a lot from those 2 up front. And this year's record shows itself as it is. I mean, the 3rd at Daytona, 1st at Gatorback, and then 3rd again at Underground. He's comfortable fighting for that top spot. Yeah. And he's learning a lot from those guys. He's learning where he needs to be in order to get that podium spot and how to fight for that podium spot each round.
Exactly. And, you know, it puts me in a tough spot as, you know, the guy that organizes ATV Fantasy, right? Because, you know, I feel like Bryce is a little bit in a league of his own. Now, if I asked Jeffrey that, he obviously wouldn't believe me, and probably rightfully so, because he led him for a good portion of the motos at Gatorback. He was right there with him this weekend at Underground, but I just have this gut feeling like, and I love Jeffrey, you know, I love the guy. He's a great friend of mine, but I feel like Bryce, if he had to do it, like, he could just get by the rest of these guys. Oh, yeah. That's how it feels. It just feels like he's got an extra gear right now, and taking nothing away from the rest of those guys. But it's like, man, And I don't know that Bryce belongs with those top two either in their tier. It's like, Joel and Chad should be in a tier, and then Bryce should be in his own tier all by himself, and then, go down from there. But yeah, we'll figure that out in the future. But yeah, it just seems like he's got a little bit more from those guys behind him,
Oh yeah, but him and Rastrelli battling it out this year. I mean, that's been, if you're not watching Joel and Chad, you're watching Bryce and Rastrelli, because those two are battling it out right behind each other, especially for that overall at Gatorback, and then again at Underground. Those two are learning a lot about each other's style.
Exactly. So I talked to Jeffrey, it was either last week or the week before, on the phone a little bit. And he said, like, I just feel like Bryce and I are a step above the other guys. And I think, so far, I mean, you'd have to agree with him. They do look like they're a little bit in a league of their own. Jeffrey, talking about him a little bit, he was second fastest in qualifying, which is awesome. He's found his qualifying legs since starting his own team. It's not like years ago where he was maybe battling a little power and stuff like that. He might have not had the power that he once, what he once wanted. Now he's got that. And I think you're seeing that. So second fastest in qualifying, 4.4 in the motos, all over Bryce in both motos, comes across the finish line, like, racing to the line, revving it a little bit in the air to make sure that Bryce knew he was right there. But he was rock solid as ever. And, just a couple seconds in each moto separated Jeffrey from going, 4.4 like he did to going 2.2. Like, that's how, I mean, I know he's not happy. Like, obviously he wants podiums, but he was right there. And I hope that, I mean, if he can just stick with it and keep putting these good performances together, like, that's what gets a guy third in points. I mean,
oh yeah, for sure.
Down the stretch last year, we saw it's the DNFs, it's the first corner crashes, it's the mechanicals, it's stuff like that takes away the top three. But, if Bryce and Jeffrey keep putting these consistent rides together, it's going to be a dogfight down the stretch, and it's going to be awesome to watch.
Oh, for sure. All the way to the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another great ride for Jeffrey. I don't want to sleep on that at all, because he was awesome. Nick Janusa ended up 5th overall. He goes 5.6 on the day. I mean, stop me if you've heard this before, but he's ever consistent. He's always in the top 5. He's always, he's going to be fit. He's going to be strong to the end. He's going to push till the very, the checkered flag. So he was awesome on this day. And this class is so freaking good. Like, when you look at the names behind him, Hogue and Stanfield and Lindquist and Wolf, I mean, you look at the guys behind him, these top 5s are not easy to get. So I don't want to sleep on the fact that, Nick Janusa, again, another rider that so similar to Jeffrey. I know every weekend, like, he's not stoked about 5th, but 5th is still awesome, and putting these consistent rides together is also awesome and great for points. And the last couple seasons, we've seen Nick have to dig himself out of a hole. And if he keeps putting these awesome rides together like he's doing, we're not going to have to see him, dig himself out of a hole. He's going to stay right in the top 5 all season long. So another great ride for him. I don't know if you have anything you want to touch on with Nick there, but he was awesome all day Saturday.
You've pretty much covered it all. He was good all day, and he looked good on the quad, and he had it dialed.
How about Brandon Hogue? So he ends up 6th overall. He didn't get the start in the first moto that he wanted, obviously. Moto 2 was a little bit better. He gave himself a little bit better chance there. 9.5 on the day for Brandon. So obviously, we know, like, his expectations, especially coming into the year, are, podiums and winning races. We've seen him do it before. He was 3rd in points last year. So obviously we know that that's what he wants. That's where he expects to be. Wasn't quite there, but I think, again, like we were just touching on how good this class is right now, how fast all these riders are going. And if you start about 10th, you're probably not going to race up to the, top 5 or inside the top 5. Like, that would be a hard thing for any of these guys to do, because obviously he gets a little bit better start in Moto 2, and then we see him finish 5th in that second moto. So let you touch on Brandon there. I mean, we know he's on a totally different program this year. That might be part of it, just finding the footing on a new machine. He looks comfortable on it. Like, he looks awesome, but yeah, like, there's growing pains with a new team. There always is. I know that I think I remember posting that at some point on the Digging Deep social channels there, that there's just things you have to go through. When last year he gets to the Music team, and Music's had the Honda stuff so figured out, like, it was already ready to go, hop on it and ride. And though he's obviously got a good program, he's got a bunch of great people around him, he's got a really good support system. He's running a lot of the same components, all those things, but like there's still growing pains that are going to come with a new team. So I'll let you touch on Brandon there, but I saw a post from him last night and it's like, I know some people are questioning, but I appreciate all the people that are backing me kind of posts like that. And I'm like, man, nobody's doubting him. Like we know he's got it in him. We've seen it before. It's just got to work out a bunch of bugs or a couple bugs, I should say. And he's going to be right where we expect him. But I expect at High Point, like if he gets a good start at High Point, we're going to see him on the podium. Like I truly believe that. I would love to see him start with Bryce and Jeffrey and see what that battle looks like, but we just haven't seen that yet.
Oh, I think we'll definitely see that battle for sure this season. And
yeah.
I mean, Brandon Hogan, that second moto, he was just battling it out with Max Lindquist, and those two looked really good, really consistent. And Hogue got that extra gear and got around Max for that position, and it worked out for him.
Yeah, he's been, he's fighting. You're like, Brandon's never one of those guys that's going to back down, but I know like he's also not going to be happy unless he wins. We almost saw him win last year. I want that for the guy so bad, just so he can show off a smile for once. But yeah, so 6th overall on the day for Brandon Hogue. 7th overall was Logan Stanfield. He continues to impress. So starts the year with a couple 6th. He ends up 7th on this day. He was 6'8" on the day for 7th overall. And man, like I posted actually during the first moto, Aliza, at this tenure in the season, Logan Stanfield is the most improved pro, and it's not even close. He's been so impressive. So I'll let you touch on that a little bit because I've been so impressed with Logan so far this season. So what was your impression of Logan on Saturday?
Like you said, very impressive. And he is trying to get those lines to catch those top 5 guys, but he's got it figured out where he's above those top 10, and he's just trying to learn those other line choices that are out there, trying to get to the top 5, but it's definitely going to become a consistent thing for him once he gets everything figured out. He was kind of by himself for part of the moto, but he was keeping it dialed all the way, kept it going, and he never backed down to catch the guys behind him. He just kept going and trying to catch those front guys.
And that can be a tough thing, when you're by yourself in a moto like that, where there's a battle in front of you and a battle behind you. Like sometimes it can be hard to keep your pace. You start doing a little thinking, and because you're all on your own. And he didn't do that. Like you said, he kept his pace. He kept those guys, at a distance behind him. And I thought that was really impressive. So it wasn't another 6th as he put together 2 6 to start the year, but I was just as impressed with this race. And I'm looking forward to having him on the show here because I feel like with Logan, it's just like he's maybe, I don't know if it's mental or what it is, if it's physical, if he's more comfortable on the machine or stronger or whatever it is, but it's like there's just been a shift with him where, a year ago or 2 years ago, it was maybe not as good a starts, and he'd, slowly battle towards the front and end up 7th or 8th, or, he'd get a good start and he'd, maybe fade to 7th or 8th. Like he looks clearly like he's got another gear over what we've seen from him in the past. And I think that, like, you see that, I mean, look at, so he finishes 6th in Moto 1, and look at the guys that he beats. He beats Wesley Wolf. He beats Max Lindquist. I mean, he was absolutely awesome on this day. When you look at some of the names that he put together, put behind him in that first moto, and obviously racing with in the second moto, but he was phenomenal on the stage. Just another phenomenal performance from him. Max Lindquist ends up 8th overall, and like you said, he was battling. Like, he looks good. He's battling hard. It's just a testament to how freaking good this class is. I mean, another guy, he's not happy with 8th. He's a guy that's finished on the podium. Like, he wants more, but this is about where he was all day. He was about 8th all day. He goes 8-7 in the motos for 8th overall. And one of these days, you're just going to see him, get a better hole shot and be up in the top 5. And earlier in his career, so far through his career here, he ends up, being in 4th or 5th and late pushing to 3rd in these motos. We're inevitably going to see it, one of these races. I think that, with all these guys, with every one of these guys that we just mentioned, Hetrick, Wienen, Ford, Rastrelli, Janusa, Hogue, Stanfield, even Lindquist, I think with every one of those guys, the start is so important. And without that start, like, those front guys just make the gap too big before, when you're all going about the same speed, that you're not going to catch up. But, Max, just another, like, I look at him every week where he's maybe not in the top 3 or top 5 where he wants to be, and think, man, this class is fast. Like, these guys are just so freaking good right now. So what did you see from Max Lindquist?
He looked good. And I mean, battling with Hogue, and he's been that podium guy, and we know that's possible from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also similar to Brandon Hogue. He has the new 4130 Motorsports team with Jaden Wanderville and the whole crew over there.
Yeah.
Great group of guys. And I think they're also figuring out what works for Max and what does Max need in order to get back on that podium, and how to make it all work and get back up there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think again, like you just said, I mean, and that's something that's been in the back of my mind. Like, obviously it's still a Yamaha. They're still running the same components for the most part, chassis stuff. But yes, there is different motor packages going on and different stuff there. And again, like, there's nothing wrong with 8th. It just shows you how good the class is, like it's just such a gnarly class right now. Another guy, 9th overall, Wesley Wolf, 7-9, awesome performance for him. I had a gut feeling he was going to be good this weekend, and he was, especially that 7th in Moto 1. I was thinking, because he's a tier 3 rider, he was on my fantasy team, and so he was one position behind Stanfield, and I'm like, okay, if Wesley's Wesley's got to get Stanfield in the next moto now to win that tier, but that wasn't quite what happened. So 7-9 for Wesley there for 9th overall. Did you have Wesley on your fantasy team? Tell me about your fantasy team a little bit.
I had Logan Stanfield.
Okay. So yeah, I overthink it. Logan's my guy normally so often. And I went into this race, like, all week I'm thinking, okay, I'm taking Wesley. Just feel like I just had a feeling, and it's like, you can't bet against Stanfield. He's another guy, like, kind of like Bryce in tier 2. I'm like, Logan should just be in a tier of his own, because he's so freaking consistently good that it's like, okay, he should be in tier 3 all by himself. And then, there should be a tier 4 with the rest of tier 3, and then a tier 5 for the rest of the guys. So it's so tough to pick against Logan, but Wesley being in tier 3 as a former tier 2 rider and a former podium finisher, I mean, it's also hard to pick against him. He's just, he's so freaking good. Like, he's so naturally talented. I know we see his posts on Instagram about him, building houses and on top of roofs and shit. And yet he goes to the races on the weekend and is, mixing it up with the best guys in the world on ATVs. You can't sleep on how good Wesley Wolf is, or how naturally talented he is. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, he's been really good, especially coming back from that injury last year. He's been so consistent and
on a new machine now too.
Yeah, that Johnny Hale machine is working really well for him, and you can tell he's comfortable.
Exactly. Michael Allred, another consistent guy, 10-10 for 10th. I love him. I'm so glad to have him back at the races. Again, very similar to him. Cody Ford, 11-11 for 11th. They were kind of shadowing each other, it seemed like, in both motos, running almost the exact same lap time. So I was kind of watching that closely there in Moto 2, because obviously, Cody wanted a top 10 there in his home state, but I knew that second moto position would have been for, that overall spot. But Mike holds on for 10th. Cody ends up 11th. Adam Ulrich ends up 12th overall. So he's our first pro class rookie there. And Adam's been really impressive. I'll let you touch on him a little bit. So he goes 12-14 for 12th. He was our tier 4 winner, which was key. Like, that's what ended up winning, the event for our ATV fantasy people, because he was the one point that people needed to get that perfect combination. And Adam did that. So we're going to have him coming up on the show as well. I'm looking forward to hearing from him a little bit, but he's been really impressive all season long so far. He's been really good. Actually, he was one of the guys that I think we posted about going into the weekend that he's impressed. So he comes out with 12th overall, 12-14 for 12 for him, tier 4 winner in ATV fantasy. So Adam Ulrich was impressive.
Oh yeah, and that Moto 2, he was battling right there with Dane Molander and Aaron Salinas.
Yes,
those three were neck and neck that whole second moto, and Adam came out on top.
Yes, they were. And I was watching, because actually, and we'll get into this guy here in a sec, but Kevin Saar had split those guys at one point. So he had made it so it looked like Adam wasn't going to get the overall spot. The points weren't going to work out for Adam to get 12th and to win that tier. And then Kevin actually got by him on the last lap, and it made it so, okay, all the rookies were together again, and Adam was going to get the spot. So, so that was impressive to see. So Vince Merman, he ends up 13th overall. He was 10th for a portion of that first moto. So I was monitoring that a little bit because I like Vince. He's a guy that I'm cheering for. Obviously, he qualified really well. I think he qualified about 13th. So I think he was the top tier 4 qualifier actually in ATV fantasy. So I know that some people would have had him on their team, and one bad lap in that first moto, he was like 25 seconds longer than normal. I don't know exactly what happened. But that dropped him down a little bit, but 14, 13 for 13th overall for Vince. And then, like I just said, so Kevin Saar, he ends up 14th overall, the 5-time European champion, of course. But he was a lot better than his results showed. He was 16th in Moto 1, 12th in Moto 2, but in that first moto, late in the moto, he popped a tire off the bead, the music team said, in a small corner crash. And then in Moto 2, he got stuck in a berm early, but put in a hard charge, and he was flying late in the moto. Like, he was running nearly top 5 speed late in that moto. Like I said, he was racing through those rookies at the end of that second moto, and he was freaking flying. So Kevin Saar, obviously he was better than what his results here on the sheet show. But obviously we'll get into what happened on Sunday. But Kevin Saar, what I should have said already, I haven't even said this yet, but I thought he wasn't even racing. Like, we didn't even think he was racing after Gatorback with those couple broken vertebrae that he's got. And then I get a text from Brett Musig, his team owner there. And he said, yeah, Kevin's, flying back in next week, and he's going to do a little riding, and he's in for Texas. And I'm like, what? Like, no way. And then he had that problem at the end of the first moto with the bead and his tire coming off the bead. And I didn't know that at the time. So I'm thinking, man, is his back flaring up? Is he not feeling well? Like, maybe this is going to be it for him. And sure enough, he comes back out there. He's flying in the second moto. So what an awesome addition to our series he is. Like, I was thinking after that last race, like, man, was it this short-lived? Like, were we only going to have had the 5-time European champ for a couple races and that's it? And not at all. Like, and I know he finished 14th overall, but he's so much better than that. He's going to be a guy that's going to be battling well inside the top 10 going forward. And I'm just so glad that we got him back, and he looked good at Texas. Like, what an awesome addition to the series he is.
Oh yeah, and he actually ended up running the Pro-Am class on Sunday, and he looked really good.
Yes.
That first moto didn't quite go his way, but in that second moto, he was out front, and he had Mason Jackson trying to catch him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So we'll get into the Pro-Am action in a minute here, but yeah, so stoked that Kevin's back out there and not hurting obviously too bad with how well he rode and stuff like that. And then finishing up the class here, looking at 15th and 16th, Aaron Salinas ends up 15th with 13-16 moto scores, and Dane Molander ends up 16th with 15-15 moto scores. And I think that just shows again how good this class is right now, where the two guys that were battling for the Pro-Am title a year ago are 15th and 16th. Now I know, Texas is a long trip for a lot of guys. So we didn't have Zach Harris. We didn't have Marshall Smith. We didn't have some of those guys. Obviously we know Cesar Jimenez is out with injury and stuff like that. We didn't have Andrew Shadow. I mean, there's a couple of guys that would have been mixing it up with these guys as well. But again, like, it shows you how good this class is right now, because every single guy is a Pro-Am champion, is well established, has finished from start to finish, this class is so strong.
Oh yeah.
And that just shows that. I mean, you had Dane on social media saying this was a major step in the right direction this weekend, and he finished 16th. Like, it just shows. I know I referenced that I had a phone call, a conversation with Jay Goebel from Impact Solutions on Saturday night, and he said Dane's bike looks substantially better than it did earlier in the year. Dane looks substantially better than he did earlier in the year. It's just that this class is so good. I've said it on a couple of these shows, but there's no cupcakes out there to make, the really fast guys look good. They're just all really, really fast.
And that's why they're all in that pro class, because they're all so fast.
Exactly. So awesome to see there with those guys. So as we look at some of the standouts in the other classes, Aliza, we have to start with the Pro-Am class that you mentioned already. Moto 1 goes to Blair Miller, who led wire to wire in that first moto. Moto 2 goes to Kevin Saar, which, like I said, I was so happy when Brett said he was going to race that class because, I think that racing up front here on U.S. soil could do such great things for his confidence. I mean, having never done that before. He's never came to the States and ran up front before. I don't care if it's in Pro-Am, and Pro-Am's very fast. Like there's a bunch of really good guys in there. So to do that here on American soil, I think that could do wonders for his confidence, but super stoked to have him there in Pro-Am. But the story of the day was the unbelievable riding of 17-year-old Mason Jackson, who went 2-2 for the first Pro-Am overall win of his career. So you were there, you saw that moto. Tell me about the Pro-Am racing a little bit, because it was amazing. Because like you said, I mean, Kevin Saar didn't get the start that he needed in that first moto. I mean, he was outside the top 5, yet the class is so fast, very similar to the pro class. I mean, you got Adam Ulrich in there and Jaden Launderville. And like I said, Blair Miller, some of these guys, Joey Chambers, like some of these really good riders. You're not just going to race up through that front pack of that class either. So we saw some great racing. Tell me about the Pro-Am class a little bit.
Oh yeah. And that Pro-Am class was definitely, I think some of the biggest shockers were from that race. I mean, that Moto 2, Ian Juka came out and took the whole shot and led for that first lap.
Yeah.
And Mason Jackson, who wasn't even on his Honda, he was on a TDR Yamaha, and he looked so comfortable on that Yamaha, and he was able to just put it in lap after lap, and he rode really well. But Jaden Launderville was right there behind him with Joey Chambers and Blair Miller. All of those guys are so quick, and they know each other's riding style. They know where to gain some time on others, but they rode really well all day long.
Yeah, you are so right. And to me, Mason Jackson's strong start to the season here has to be one of the biggest statements made in the sport throughout the 3 rounds of the season so far. And remember, I mean, he's a long time, obviously, youth racing star. We've known the name for years. He's obviously, been really, really good in the youth classes up through the 250 classes. He won a pair of 250 class national championships to cap his 250 career in 2021. Then injury cost him most all of his 450 debut season a year ago, but he seemingly hasn't missed a beat. He's riding like a seasoned veteran. And just like you said, that's almost the most amazing part of this is he wasn't even riding his own quad. He wasn't even riding his own quad when he gets his first career Pro-Am victory. And it's not like he's jumping on another Yamaha when he rides Yamahas. He was on a TDR Yamaha when his quad of choice is a hybrid quad with, a hybrid. I think it's got a KTM motor. I think so. Yeah. Honda style chassis with the KTM motor, hybrid, and just amazing. Like I watched the guy ride, and he still looks like a youth rider to me. Like he's obviously grown and gotten a lot stronger than he was in years past, but like his stance on the bike, he's still hiding behind the handlebars. I mean, it's crazy to me to see him doing what he's doing, because that class is so fast. And those guys at the front of the class are seasoned veteran like guys, I would say. Like they've been there. Most all of them aren't necessarily newcomers, except for him. And he's racing up through some of those guys. I mean, basically every moto so far this season seems like he hasn't been the one to get the best hole shot, but he's raced through the top 5. And I just find it so freaking impressive what he's done so far, especially at that age. I heard Kevin on the mic over the weekend say when he was battling Brett Musig in Pro Sport, and Brett's 27 and Mason's 17. And it's like, man, like it happens so fast with some of these guys, and Mason's looking like very much the future. I mean, stuff like we saw with Zach Decker in Pro-Am and Max Lindquist in Pro-Am, like he looks very much like that mold. I mean, he's racing and beating guys like Adam Ulrich, who are finishing, I mean, in 12th in the pro class, at 17. He's only going to get better. So he very much looks like a future contender, in the sport. But man, what a ride for him. I mean, like I said, he's got to be, putting out the biggest statement, just about in any class all season so far. He's been amazing.
Oh yeah. And I mean, another person that rode really well, Blair Miller. I mean, he did
Yeah.
really well in Pro-Am on Sunday, but
Yep.
Saturday he had that whole shot incident in that first moto, but then he came back and rebounded in that second moto for that fifth in that second moto, and he looked really good as well. It's just that whole shot cost him, but second moto came right back out for that fifth.
And kind of like you're saying, so we'll get into pro sport here in a second, like you're touching on with the Saturday action, but he won that first moto and got out to like a 6 or 7 second lead and basically maintained it the rest of the way when Mason Jackson was trying to chase him down. And it's like, just shows you like how important that hole shot is, because, it's any one of those guys, it seems like, can win right now, but the hole shot is so important. And if you get that hole shot and are able to put a little distance on the pack, then you can just maintain, let those guys duke it out behind you kind of thing. Right. I mean, you saw it firsthand, but that hole shot is so important.
Especially because underground was that long hole shot that you turn to the left and then you turn to the right. So that was very much the key.
Well, I think that, like you said, in the track in general is so fast that's one of those tracks where if you are the one in clean air and there's a little bit of a battle going on behind you, where maybe the second or third fastest guys aren't maybe in second place, you can put some distance on the pack when you're out in clean air because it's such a fast, flowy track in general. So amazing to see. That was a perfect representation of that. And yeah, like you said, so pro sport goes down on Saturday and we saw Brett Musig in that second moto outlast Mason Jackson, who won the first moto, but Brett outlasts Mason, who was putting on a huge charge in that second moto, and Musig got the overall there, followed by Mason Jackson and Joey Chambers. But pro sport continues to be one of my favorite races to watch all weekend, because especially with Brett in there, it's basically Pro-Am, but with Brett Musig in there. And Brett continues to be so hard to beat with the hole shots that he gets. And he's so consistent. He's so fast, but that's one of my favorite races to watch all weekend. And I think, Saturday saw very similar to what we continue to see. It's hole shots are so important. It's hard to beat Brett and just let these guys go duke it out. It's awesome to watch.
Oh yeah.
So how about WMX action, Aliza? Something obviously near and dear to your heart, I'm sure. How about Kinsey Osborne winning that first moto by just under 50 seconds? How good is Kinsey Osborne, Aliza? She's amazing.
Oh, she's amazing. I mean, she battled with Andrea last year, but this year she's just on another level, and she may not quite have the starts quite yet. I mean, Ellie Roush took the whole shot, but she catches her quick and she just rides her race, and she's been consistent. She's definitely the one to watch in that WMX class. Yeah. This weekend we had a new WMX rider, Olivia Joyner, and she came in and took that fourth position right off the bat. She felt really comfortable. She fit in with those ladies, and that was another great race to watch.
Yeah, it's awesome. So then Moto 2 saw Kinsey put about 30 seconds between her and the rest of the pack there in WMX. So she goes 1-1, followed by Neve Shaw and Ellie Roush. It's awesome to see, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. So the WMX class is getting a bunch more coverage, a bunch more showcase. They're doing some cool stuff with the whole shot money and the pairing with the younger girls, right? That whole deal. So I love to see that. And as a former women's racer yourself, like that's got to be really cool to see these girls, these ladies, these women getting more and more coverage that they deserve. Because there's a lot of good racers in there, headlined by Kinsey Osborne, but the rest of them as well. I love to see the class growing, for one. They're continuing to be more and more younger girls, whether it's the girls class or the school girl. Those classes continue to get bigger and bigger, and also more coverage of it. I love to see that.
Oh yeah. And it's especially with, they have the WMX Racer recap. Like that's something that's really cool, because it used to be just the pros, and then you had little snippets in here and there, but getting that coverage has been really good. The WMX youth program has been amazing, especially getting those new younger girls in and hopefully getting some more girls involved in the sport and giving everybody a chance to just really recognize these ladies and how well they're doing.
Yeah, I love to see it. I really do. I think it's well past due. I'm stoked to see all the coverage and all the awesome things going on. And there's a lot of, obviously it was headlined by Andrea for a lot of years, with the way that she obviously not only won on the racetrack, but the way that she led off the track as an ambassador and a leader. And I think that, you're seeing that with some of the other girls too. I think it's just awesome to see what's going on there with the women's and WMX classes. They're growing, and all that stuff is awesome. Other riders that stood out to me, Aliza, we saw Cale Deal grab a couple A-class overall wins. Monster Jam athlete Blake Granger was back. He comes out and wins the vet, the 30 plus BC class, which was cool. Noah Arnold won a pair of overalls in the 250 classes. I think Landon Korn won the other 250 class. So those are always fun to monitor. And Styles West won 3 overalls in the 90 and super mini classes, which is amazing. Like two overalls is big. 2 overalls on a weekend is notable. 3 is next level. So awesome for those guys. Did anyone else stand out to you, Aliza, that we haven't touched on yet?
Lillian Plaza was also another one. She came out and won both schoolgirl and the girls 9 to 13 class. She rode really well. She looked comfortable out there. He may not have won, but Davin Sloniker, he looked really comfortable out there. He was battling right up there with those guys in the 70 classes, and he was impressive. Tom Ebden and Kobe Van Fossen in that college boy class, those who were battling it out from the gate drop all the way to the finish line.
I'd love to hear that. Any of the great racing. I mean, you obviously being there in person, it's easier to see some great racing that maybe even the result sheet doesn't show. So I wanted to get your opinion there on some guys that stood out. But yeah, awesome racing throughout the classes. And lastly, Aliza, let's finish up here by looking kind of ahead to High Point here for a moment with our SSI Decals top 5 storylines heading into round 4. And I want to start with storyline number 5 is, will one of these rookies put it in the top 10 for the first time, and who will it be? So will we see that at High Point? We know you're good at ATV Fantasy. You're good at predicting these things. So predict for me if a rookie is going to be in the top 10 at High Point, and if so, who will it be?
Oh boy, put me on the spot here. If I had to guess, I would say Aaron Salinas.
Yep.
That seems to be kind of his track, big jumps, big elevation changes. So if any of those rookies specifically for High Point, I would have to say Aaron Salinas.
Yeah, I think if we're going to see one of them break into the top 10, I think it's going to be Aaron, whenever it is. It seems to me, I know he wanted more this weekend, especially in his home state. He didn't want to finish 15th. But overall this season so far, he has been the guy that seems to have just a little bit more than the rest of them. If we're throwing out Kevin Saar, if he's not dubbed as a rookie, I don't know if he is or not as of this recording, but if he doesn't count as a rookie, I definitely think that Aaron is the guy. I think that looks like he's got a little more juice, though I will say Adam Ulrich, I think that we'll see Adam be really good there too. I mean, he's a PA kid. So is Dane Molander. I mean, but yeah, that could be a really good battle, I guess, shaping up as we kind of discuss it here. I'm starting to doubt my Aaron Salinas pick a little more, but should be really fun to watch. I mean, I love to see, and I've always said this for years, you see this class of pros, and then there's like always a secondary race going on between the rookies, because they know like we're all in this together. Which one is going to be rookie of the year? And that's been fun to monitor so far. Like you said, in some of the motos this weekend, they were like all together on top of each other. I mean, there was a battle of Ulrich, Salinas, and Molander duking it out late in one of those motos this weekend, which is awesome to see. I love that, to see those guys like, okay, I want to be the top rookie, like I was once there. That's a fun thing to see, because they're motivated to beat each other.
Oh yeah, for sure. And especially those guys raced each other in Pro-Am and Pro Sport last year. They all wanted that top spot, and now they're all battling for that rookie of the year. Mm-hmm. So they're all battling it out every weekend, and each of them have their own strengths. But I think by the end of the year, you'll get to see all of those guys improve so much.
Agreed. It's a learning curve that you have to go through to kind of get better. I feel like it's just as a rookie, you got to go through it to get to the top or to get up the ladder in the pro class. And that's exactly what those guys are doing. So moving on to storyline number 4 in our SSI Decals top 5 storylines. Bryce Ford has been the best of the rest this season as the clear P3 guy. That's something that we discussed earlier in this conversation here. So can anyone else challenge him at High Point? Give me your prediction.
Rastrelli's going to be that one, because Rastrelli's gotten podiums there in the past.
Damn near won. He damn near won there a number of years ago. So yeah, you're onto something.
I think it's going to be Rastrelli that battles him out, although Janusa's had his moments at High Point as well. So if anybody's going to be battling with Bryce other than Chad and Joel, it's going to be Janusa and Rastrelli.
Okay, I'm going to hold my my counter take to you for later in our top 5 storylines here. So storyline number 3, Max Lindquist doesn't obviously expect to finish 7th and 8th. We talked about that. So do we see his first flash of the season really at High Point? Do we see a flash from Max Lindquist at High Point? What do you think?
I'd say yes.
Okay.
He's gotten better each round, and he's really figuring out where he's at in that pack and getting quicker, making smart line choices. And I think High Point, he can definitely show, hey, I'm here. I can still be up there.
So does that mean top 5 for him, or what does that mean?
Oh, for sure. I think a top 5 for sure.
Top 5 for Max Lindquist. Okay, I like it. Moving on to number 2 in our storylines here is High Point, when we see Brandon Hogue as a podium threat for the first time in 2023. That's why I said I was going to hold off on this, because I think this is when we're going to see Brandon put it together. I really believe that. We know we're going to see it one of these weekends. We know that he couldn't get to High Point soon enough. I'm sure he's not happy that there's basically 3 weeks in between races, because he wants to get that taste in his mouth from Texas out as quickly as possible. So he's going to be working his tail off. He's going to be dotting his I's and crossing his T's going into High Point. And we've seen him podium at High Point before. And not only that, I mean, he's done it at Unadilla. That's where he got his first career podium. He's podiumed at High Point. He's good at Loretta's. We saw him damn near win a moto or be very close to Joel last year at Briarcliff. Those hard-packed, dryish tracks are where Brandon really seems to excel, at least on the Honda he did. And I think that High Point, we're going to see something new from Brandon. I'm predicting it here. I don't know what you think about that, but I think that we're going to see him contend for that podium for the first time this year at High Point. I truly believe that.
It would be really good to see that, especially I know that would help him as well. I know he feels really good on the bike. He knows he's got what he needs to be up there. I think just depending on how the weekend goes, he could definitely very well be on that podium, and we can see the Brandon that we saw last year at that beginning. We can see him come back and be up there in the mix.
For Brandon's sake, he needs to do it because the dude's got to be at risk right now. I know Brandon too well to know that he's not a happy camper right now. So I want it for him more than anything. So moving on to our final storyline here that we're tracking going into High Point is, will Chad Wienen heal enough in these next 3 weeks to challenge Joel Hetrick at one of the best tracks on the circuit for Joel? Beating Joel Hetrick at High Point. High Point's kind of turned into how I think of Unadilla. It's one of those tracks that's very, very difficult for anybody to beat Joel Hetrick. So beating Joel at High Point, I understand, would be a tall task, but could he heal enough to be closer to 100% to where he can maybe challenge Joel a little bit, get a hole shot? And we've seen just Chad do that before, beat Joel at some of the tracks where, it's a Joel Hetrick racetrack. We saw it last year at Pleasure Valley. So can Chad heal enough to be able to put in laps to compete with Joel Hetrick? We'll see. What do you think, Aliza? Are we going to see a true battle there at High Point, or is it going to be too much for Chad to overcome?
No, I think he'll be up there in that battle. I mean, these first 3 weeks after he got it plated, and he was already up there in that second, going 2-2. So with 3 extra weeks to help heal more and get more ride time on the bike, because I know he didn't get to ride much coming into Underground.
Right.
I think he could very well be up there trying to challenge Joel for that overall.
I agree. This is a conversation that I was having with my wife and my family these last week or so. And it's like, especially, you think about when Joel got his collarbone plated years ago in 2013 and came back pretty fast. And you think, like, he was a young kid. He was a young kid at the time. You see the dirt bike guys that do it and whatever. And Chad is no young kid. He's no spring chicken. He's nearly 40 and he's coming back like that. And it's just amazing to see. I saw, and I forget the guy's name. His name might be Stan on social media, but he was commenting on, when we were speculating about Chad coming back, and no way he's coming back. There's absolutely no chance. There's no way. There's it's not humanly possible to happen. And so I was like, okay, I'm filing these in the back of my mind as this race is getting closer, because I knew Chad was going to race. And so in my mind on Saturday, I'm like, well, what is this guy going to say? So, I saw his name pop up in the last couple of days, and now his story is, well, he's going to crack it right around the plate. Mark my words, that's going to happen. And I'm like, gosh, like, yes, could it happen? Yes, it could happen.
Right.
But you can't doubt Chad Wienen. Like, he's proved it, I mean, it's amazing what he's done, but I had to get this Stan thing in there because, yeah. He clearly,
he 12 weeks and then he's back on the podium
right
3 weeks after.
And the key is getting it plated, right? If it couldn't have been plated, It would have been a different story, but you can't doubt Chad Wienen. I mean, it's an amazing thing. We kind of started this episode talking about it, kind of ending this thing talking about it. How did your fantasy team do on Saturday? Tell me about your fantasy team a little bit. You're an expert at this, so tell me.
I had Joel, which came out for tier 1.
So did I.
Bryce for tier 2.
So did I.
Logan Stanfield for tier 3.
Okay, I had Wesley.
And then I was hoping for the Texas Aaron Salinas, but just quite missed out on that one. But
I had Aaron as well.
Those 3 tiers did really well. And if I had to guess coming into what my picks are going to be for High Point, I feel like it's going to be Joel for tier 1.
Yeah.
Bryce for tier 2.
Okay.
Just because he's done well there. Tier 3. I would like Wesley Wolf.
You're going Stanfield.
Done really well.
You're going Stanfield.
I think it's going to be Stanfield. And I would like tier 4 to be Aaron Salinas. But depending on how qualifying goes, I might change it for Adam.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. That's why I'm a little bit like, I need to figure out something with these tiers, because like, not that we've had an abundance of winners or anything. Like, that's not the truth. I think there was 5 winners this last weekend, which is about the standard, it seems like. But I think Joel, with the exception of Gatorback, because Gatorback was no, I take that back. Joel was the winner in fantasy at Gatorback. So Joel, Bryce, and Stanfield have been the picks
consistent
for every race this year, and like the last 2 races, or at least the last race of last year. So I need to figure out something, we need to make it a little more complicated. Like, it's not that easy, because you might've heard me talk about this on a previous show, but somebody said, that we should have to lock in our picks before qualifying. And my argument was that qualifying makes it tougher, because you see somebody do, you see Jeffrey qualify second, and I guarantee more people pick Jeffrey then because he qualified second, or Wesley qualifies well, or Vince Merman qualified top of tier 4. I mean, qualifying makes it tougher. It really does.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's a crazy thing. And ATV fantasy has been nuts. I don't know how much I've spoken about this to our listeners, but our number of players outgrew the platform. So then they had to split up the league. So for some of you, I don't know how it looks on your, like in your app or whatever, but I know some of you don't see the whole league. Like, there's like half of our players are on one side and half are on the other. So then we send out like a master results sheet with the 2 put together. And so it's kind of explaining to people. So Fantasizer, the platform that we go through or whatever, the developers of it tried to fix it to try to put them all together for this race. And it created all kinds of issues, and the verification emails weren't sending to like Hotmail and Yahoo or something, and just became this big mess. So I've been stressing in a major way for the last week about this thing. Actually, it ended up being totally okay. We didn't have very many people with any problems, but everybody that is still playing, obviously 99% of people didn't have an issue. Anybody that did, I've been working to make it right and get their picks in. We can do it manually and all that stuff. So just know that anybody that did maybe experience some quirks or hiccups or anything, I know doing it inside the app, Aliza, I don't know if you play it in the app, but the app actually works a little smoother for people at this point.
Okay.
But I'm totally like, nobody's more bummed about the way that this has been than I am, because I want the experience to be awesome for all of you. And just know that I am working these guys, tails off to get it fixed and better. I think that presumably, between UI and the moon, like I feel like it'll look different next year, probably. Like the platform will be different maybe, but I can promise you that whatever hiccups or glitches you might experience right now, the winnings or experience that people are going to be in for at the end of the year is going to be well worth it. I can promise you that. So we're going to make it up to our players here. And I just wanted to be able to voice that, because I got a bunch of messages from people saying, hey, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. I just want people to know that I apologize, obviously, for anything you may be experiencing, but, and I know it's not crazy. Like we managed it all. We really did. And I think it's only up from here, but it's going to be worth it. And we're going to keep getting better. So I appreciate you playing. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you're our first 3-time winner. So you've been awesome at this thing. And where do you sit in points right now, Aliza?
I think
you got to be top 10, right?
I think, although with Adam outperforming Aaron this past weekend, I think I dropped a little bit.
Okay.
But I know I'm still up there in the battle with a bunch of these other guys that are doing really well.
So the start of the year is so key. The start, like, because it seems like to me, from my perspective of kind of managing the whole thing, like the guys that are at the front in the first race or two, our players, our fantasy managers that are at the front of at the first race or two, seem to stay there. Like for whatever reason, it's very hard to make up points. And I think I was like just like 3 or 4 points off of the lead this weekend, I think, and I finished tied for 85th. Okay. So things are not going well for me, if you were wondering, but yeah, you've been awesome. And I appreciate you playing. I appreciate all the people that have been playing. And I truly believe it's made the fan experience that much better. I really think so.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know that, it makes it so you're not just watching like the dudes out front or the guys, racing for the podium. We're literally watching the guys in 12th just as closely, like I'm watching Vince Merman go from 10th to 14th thinking, oh man, like the guys that had Vince, so I love that. I love the thought of, and I've said this before, but of me racing the pro class. If figuratively speaking, there would have been an ATV fantasy and I could have been on people's fantasy teams as a 8th or 9th or 10th place pro and had people cheering for me for that reason. Like I love that thought. So I love what we're bringing to the ATV racing community. It's been so much fun and I appreciate you playing, but yeah, you're mopping up on everybody as far as event wins go.
I'm trying.
I love it. You're wearing a shirt right now that
yes,
that we sent you last weekend. So I'd love to see it. But Aliza, I think that's going to do it for our coverage here of round 4, our breakdown of round 4. We have a couple riders here ready to join the show, but I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's been so much fun. I hope you had a blast. And
for sure.
You were awesome here. You were awesome on Saturday, commentating, announcing the races, and maybe more announcing or more of this in the future for you. What can you tell me about that?
We're going to try and make it work.
You are? Okay.
We're going to try and make it work. Hopefully a couple nationals. I would like Loretta's. That's always been my favorite, just to go watch. Yeah. I haven't been able to race that one, but just the whole experience out there would be a ton of fun. Awesome. And you're going to school right now, obviously. So what are you going to school for? Getting my master's in business, specifically for sports entertainment marketing. Oh, nice. So right in this realm. That's why I asked. Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love to hear that. I have my degree in sports marketing as well. So, so kind of right in the mix there, but yeah, you're well on your way to doing something with that. Like I said, you've been awesome. You sounded so natural right from the start of this conversation, talking about the ATV stuff, which I knew was going to be the case. So, so glad that this came together as well as it did. I can't thank you enough for your time. And like I said, I hope that you had as much fun as I did. You definitely got it in you. You definitely got it in you to do this. And, well, thank you as well. So congratulations on a job well done here and at the races. Keep it up, obviously keep killing it. And look forward to doing this again. I can't thank you enough. Thanks for having me, and hopefully we'll do this again sometime soon. All right, just go easy on us in ATV Fantasy, okay? Just go easy on us.
We'll try. We'll see how this race at High Point goes.
Awesome. You're the best. I can't thank you enough. That's Aliza Capen signing off on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, brought to you by Namira Technologies. Let's get right to our interviews with some of the riders that shine the brightest this weekend in Texas. Thanks so much, Aliza.
Thank y'all.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by Manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the U.S. and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at Manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0 and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at Manscaped.com by using code DiggingDeep20.
Hey everyone, this is Larry Mills, president of DP Brakes North America and proud partner of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. We at DP Brakes are a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology, dominating the ATV world for decades by supporting the best four-wheel racers on the planet. This year's lineup includes Jeff Rastrelli, Mark Baldwin and Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Janusa, and many more, including Mr. Digging Deep himself, Cody Jansen. Plus all the top 17 GNCC pros such as 7-time champion Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Hunter Hart, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, Adam McGill, and previous champion Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer. Products that ultimately help place them on top of the podium week after week. DP brakes are available through www.dp-brakes.com, or you can purchase them through your local Parts Unlimited stocking dealer, or you can even message us, myself, Larry Mills, or DP Brakes on Instagram or Facebook. And if you have any questions about product or sponsorship support, please ask us. We are waiting for you. Join the best ATV riders in the world equipped with DP Brakes, and have a great year, everyone.
Nearing 2 decades into the brand's existence, Factory 43 is back and better than ever, continuing to make major waves in the ATV world. For the 3rd consecutive season, Factory 43 is the official aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing ATV team, providing their state-of-the-art Evo Nerf bars, MX-style front bumpers, and grab bars for 2-time champ Joel Hetrick. If you're in the market to upgrade your Nerf bars, bumpers, or grab bars, head over to Factory43ATV.com to see their full line of industry-leading products available for all makes and models. Head over to Factory43ATV.com today.
Success in the ATV MX world is similar to what creates financial success as well. The right people, the right advice, and more importantly, hard work and the benefit of an ongoing relationship as situations change and adversity is experienced. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you reach your goals? Haymauer Financial Group can create a personalized, goal-based plan to help your family prepare for whatever life brings. Call me, Scott Haymauer, at Haymauer Financial Group, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, at 920-338-8150. That's 920-338-8150. Offices located in beautiful De Pere, Wisconsin, with registrations and clients nationwide.
Headlined by their 4130 Chromoly, Launderville Steel and Concrete Supply is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products. This racing family-owned full metal service center and concrete product supplier comes with over 30 years of experience serving the entire United States from their central Midwest location. As the #1 choice for nationwide shipments and with available next-day delivery in select areas, LSE has you covered near or far. 4130 is not just the chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for an array of motorsports applications, but it is also the name of the newest addition to the Pro Paddock with riders Jaden Launderville and Max Lindquist, introducing the new 4130 Motorsports team. Launderville Steel offers a large selection of material for any project, including their concrete division that can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. For a quote or more info, visit laundervillesteel.com today or give them a call at 715-675-6193. That's 715-675-6193. Here at Digging Deep, we have an obvious passion for ATVs and pridefully enjoy sharing the sport's history. Since 2019, when the podcast was born, we've been working to partner with individuals who share our passion, but one man and his vision had been missing from our partnership group. Until now. When it comes to the sport's history, the hallowed grounds of Binky's Forever ATC Museum has it all. Binky Tapscott's mind-blowing collection of 3- and 4-wheelers has preserved history by spanning all makes and models from Honda 3-wheelers in chronological order to unique builds that shaped ATV racing as we know it, like Doug Gust's iconic DRZ-powered hybrid thumper and everything in between. There's no denying Binky's passion, a passion that we certainly relate to here at Digging Deep. Binky's goal is to share his amazing collection with fellow enthusiasts by making his prized possessions accessible to the public via scheduled visits. Follow Forever ATC Museum on Facebook and watch foreveratc.com for further updates on possibly getting a chance to see Binky's Forever ATC Museum for yourself. We are proud to welcome Binky's Forever ATC Museum to the Digging Deep family. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show. All right, guys, this next guest has taken the ATV racing world by storm this season. Brought to you by Binky's Forever ATC Museum. Binky's unbelievable collection of 3- and 4-wheelers is now available for public visits, and Saturday dates have just been announced from April to November. So check that out today and start planning your trip at binkysforeveratc.com or on their social media channels. And now joining me is a guy who's been on an absolute tear early in this 2023 season. Say hello to Mr. Logan Stanfield. Logan, it's been a minute. Welcome back to Digging Deep, buddy.
Yeah, it has been a minute. We've kind of been low key on what we've been doing and all the progress, and I'm glad it's been showing. We've been putting in a lot of work over the off season and even during the season, and I'm just glad that I've been able to pick myself up out of that hole.
Yeah, man, you definitely haven't been laying low as far as like us noticing you with our coverage, and obviously ATV fantasy players, right? ATV fantasy team managers have been all over you for the whole season so far. But I already said it. I mean, you've been red hot this season, 6, 6, 7 at the first 3 rounds here in 2023. And not only that, but just the eye test shows like you're simply better than you've ever been. I mean, what do you attribute that to? What do you attribute, being better than ever? Like, you've been so strong early. What have you done to get yourself there?
I don't think there's anything particular. I think it's time, the efforts by everybody, even at TDR and Impact Solutions. He's worked with me a lot.
Sure.
And Tim, we've tested a lot of new stuff and made a few changes on my bike to get me more comfortable, and just trusting that I know that I can do that and ride at that capability for that long. We've been riding at Deckers all winter with Zach and Vince and Joel, and riding with Joel every day. I think that guy puts it on the edge every day. Don't
Right.
matter if he's not feeling it or not, he's going to be faster than you. And I think that plays a big role in it, riding with somebody like that. And even Zach's a wild man, as you saw. I mean, he was on track for a podium at Gatorback, and thing just went completely backwards for him. But yeah, I think it's shown that we've all been working hard and trying to put it down.
Yeah, man, you got quite the program going on. You mentioned Zach there. Look forward to having him on the show. Obviously, I want him to be able to talk about everything that went down. But how's your buddy doing? Give us an update on that.
I think he's doing a little bit better. His hopes are getting a little better, after getting out of the hospital and getting around. I haven't talked to him a whole lot here and there. We text before the race a little bit.
Okay.
I hate to keep bugging him about it,
Yeah.
I know he's got appointments, and but I think he's up moving around and getting around a little better. He said he might come to High Point.
Awesome.
I'm sure he misses it,
Oh yeah.
It's same thing with him. It's his life, and but I think he's doing a lot better.
Good. I mean, it sounded like from what I heard, that like the area of the break with his leg and stuff like that ended up being in an okay spot, right? So sometimes with a femur, right? I mean, you can break it. Like I had a buddy break it way up by like the hip, like way up there, and it doesn't sound like that's the case with Zach. So so yeah, stoked on that, and it is probably tough for him, right? I mean, like the racetrack that they have and everything else, like you can't get away from it, and sometimes I'm sure you almost wish that you could, maybe if you were injured. I don't know. There's no like separation for his life and with so many of us, but with the racetrack that they have, like you can't just get away from the racing side of it. It's all one big thing, and that's got to make it pretty tough when you can't go out and ride, you know?
Oh yeah, I agree. He got hurt in Florida, and I know he stayed there. I think he might be heading home soon,
Okay.
To Pennsylvania. But yeah, I talked to him a little bit about it, and he's like, I'm gonna race Loretta's, and I'm like, I've been down this road when I hurt my back, and I did the same thing. I went and raced Loretta's, and I actually raced Redbud first, and then Loretta's, and I wouldn't say I regret it, but it put me in a position where you think, oh, Zach, he was a top 3 guy right there before he wrecked that weekend. And now he's going to come back, and it would be tough for him to get in a top 10 position just because everybody's seasoned in. We've raced all season, and I think he should just, take it easy and recoup himself for next year.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with all of that, obviously, especially if you skip that last race. I mean, you have like 6 more months or whatever of healing time, right? I mean, but as an athlete, and you know this because you've experienced this too, as an athlete, to have, that carrot out there of coming back, at the end of the season, like to have that goal also pushes you as an athlete. So I totally get both sides of it.
Yeah, I think it'll be tough, but I'm sure whenever he makes his decision, it'll be it's going to be whatever he wants.
Right. It's just, it stinks to not see him out there because he was doing so well. Obviously, like you said, I mean, to see him in podium position at Gator back there and killing it like he was. So from what I heard, the throttles, I mean, obviously you can tell the throttle stuck on that thing, but like the video, dude, is so hairy from that GoPro or whatever that was facing backwards, and you see him and up in the straight up in the air, right? And were you the one on the side of him at that time? You were, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. We were neck and neck, and we were racing up that jump. And I don't know what they came to the conclusion on what happened exactly, but I know that thing was screaming off that face, and my bike was, I was scrubbing the jump to get on the downside because we were side by side.
Right.
And yeah, it was like I didn't know what was going to happen. Sometimes you can land like that and just bust your face up a little bit on the handlebars. And I've talked to him, like I said, man, you could have jumped off to the right of your bike and probably been all right because it was such a deep valley that they dug out. Yeah, you probably could have landed on that hill and maybe, I don't know what could happen.
But that's such a split-second decision, right? I mean, how do you?
It is. I've been in that situation, and that's why I talked to him about it. Because I was in the same situation when my bike blew up, I jumped off of it, and I think that was the best choice for me because that thing nosedived so bad it actually landed upside down.
Yeah.
And so jumping off for me was about the best bet. And I told him, it's just. You don't even know what to do.
No. And the video,
you freeze up.
The video is so hairy too, because you can watch the quad in the air clearly accelerating like a mother and him just like basically losing control of that thing. And there's no scarier feeling, right? Is to, and this because you had the opposite thing happen where your bike blew up in the air down there at Orlando. I was there that day. And I mean, to just not have any control in the air, right? That's the scariest thing that can happen to us as motocross riders.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like somebody shooting you out of a cannon and good luck,
Right. Yeah, it's nuts. So finishing up on the Decker topic there, obviously we're wishing Zach all the best. And I mean, for his sake, whatever he wants, whether he wants to come back at the end of the season or make his full comeback next season, I want whatever he wants for him. Obviously we all do. So tell me about the Decker race down there? Because I don't know that we've had a racer compete in it and then come on here since then to talk about it, but very much it was just like a national for you, like where you finished, the dudes you were battling with, it was very similar, right? So tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was. It was actually a really awesome event. Pretty cool. You know, it was laid back most of the day. We did head-to-head racing. I raced Salinas, and it was all random draw.
Teammate on teammate battle there.
Yep, yep. So it was fun. Obviously he was bummed out that I think the qualifiers was almost who gets the whole shot. It was definitely tough to pass in the woods. I don't think anybody passed in the woods, but the track was a pretty good track to race on for sure. They made sure that all the lines were even as possible, and we tried stuff, all winter. And Joel would give great feedback to Jason, and we all would. But yeah, the race, I slept on the gate really bad, put me in a bind.
Okay.
I really think I could have had a podium spot if I would have got a good start. I was 12 seconds behind those guys, and I chased them down by the end of the moto. I was within, less than 4 seconds.
You were right there. Yeah.
Yep. But I had a, open lane for me. I could push as hard as I could. It was 30 minutes. I've done it before, practicing there. We've tried it, and yeah, so it went pretty good, but it gave me some more momentum coming to the next races.
Yeah,
and some more confidence. So that was great for me.
So one of the things we talked about going into the event is, does a person ride their race bike or do they ride their practice bike? So what did you do?
Well, I was going to ride my race bike, and then I had some time on my practice motor. So I went ahead and put a fresh motor in. I rode it for a couple of days.
Got it.
And then we just went through with my practice bike. I mean, it's pretty much like my race bike, so I was comfortable on it. I've been riding that bike there all winter.
Of course, yeah.
So it was kind of like I really should probably just ride my practice bike, but
right,
that's what we did.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. We all love our practice bikes most. Like that's just the way that it is, So yeah, I probably made the right decision there. So you know where I stand on this, pal. Early season favorite for most improved pro. I think that the results speak for itself, right? But is it you kind of touched on this when we first started the interview here, but is it a mental thing? Is it more like you're physically stronger than ever before? I mean, I've always called you like a pro's pro, right? You're consistent. We know what you're getting from you every single week, but this year it's just like you have another gear right now. Like you are truly pushing towards that next group of dudes, the guys that are truly podium guys. So what do you credit most to that? Because you've clearly taken a step.
Yeah, I think I think I've worked harder this year than I ever have. We came into the year and like mentally I told myself I didn't want to be an 8th place guy anymore.
Yeah.
And I've talked to my dad about it, and I've committed to when I start going downhill is when I'm done.
Okay.
It's just kind of like I'm ready to move on and do my own life. Doesn't have to evolve around racing, which it probably will a lot still. It's just in my blood.
Right.
But I've been doing Brandon Hoag's workout program.
Yep.
And I've been riding more than I ever have, and I think it's just all clicking together. And Tim works with me so much from TDR, and
yep,
he's helped me improve, and he's always giving me pointers, and my dad is, and other people, and just people noticing kind of gives me more fuel. Like this guy's really putting in the work, and I see it all over the internet. People are coming up and hugging me for the fantasy, like, man, you saved me today. And so it feels good getting noticed like that. So that's kind of what's fueling my fire right now. Awesome. Is and keeping my ball rolling.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I don't think you definitely are not taking steps forward. You're not making progress or whatever. However, you just said it there. You're clearly getting better at this point. And we've been keeping an eye on you, obviously for fantasy purposes and otherwise, but top 5 is very much like we've been on top 5 watch for you, right? That would match a career best if you finish 5th. And obviously you'd love something like a podium. And I truly believe it's coming for you. Kind of like the conversation that you just referenced with your dad dad. I mean, this class is so deep right now. It's so fast. But, you know, in Moto 1 this past weekend, you had 3 multi-time podium finishers behind you. You know, Wesley Wolf, Max Lindquist, Brandon Hogue. So explain to me what it's like. I mean, obviously, I think the biggest thing, and I figured you were going to say some kind of mental shift, some kind of, you know, me deciding I'm not going to be an 8th place guy anymore. I think that that's the biggest thing. It's just a mental shift and saying, I want more. I'm going to do more. But, you know, explain to me what that's like when you have guys that you used to look up to as riders, right? I mean, guys that have finished on the podium, guys like Brandon Hogue, he's been good for a number of years now. When riders like that become dudes that, you know, you can run with, and guys that, you know, you can beat at times. I mean, that's got to be such a proud moment. But what is that like mentally, you know, to see guys that used to be dudes you saw stand on the podium? Now it's like, man, I expect to run with you. I expect to battle with you. I hope to put you behind me.
Yeah, I think I became a little more aggressive this year. Even like a lot of people say that like just racing against me, I'm just like if I got a wheel on somebody, that's my spot. And I don't ride to like I don't ride like really aggressive all the time, but I make sure like if I'm behind somebody and I know I need to go, like I let them know I'm there. And I used to not be like that. I used to just, kind of, all right, man, I got to get going. Come on. And now it's just kind of I'm bumping them, showing them wheels, doing stuff I don't normally do, putting it on the edge a little bit more. And I think that's really helped me because if you get a bad start in the pro class, you gotta get going on the first 2 laps. That's the toughest part is getting through there and getting going.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. The intensity, especially early, but the intensity throughout is what makes the difference, is what separates a guy. And I think that pace is so fast at the beginning of the races that you need to be kind of being intense or up in that front pack, because otherwise the dudes that are up there just make up too much ground early that it's very hard to make up. So yeah, I think that you're hitting on the nail on the head there, and we can see it. We can see it in your riding that your intensity is up, which is awesome. So, Pal, I told you that I wouldn't take too much of your time. I know it's your first time back home in 3 months. I think you said yesterday. That feeling of making it back home always feels so good. You're working on the practice track right now, from the wear and tear of the winter time, but it's got to feel good to be back home. And I know life is a little different when you're back home, but it's got to feel good to kind of be back at home base, I would think.
Yeah, like you say, nothing's like home. It's just a little different groove for me right now. I gotta get my schedule down. I'm all about the schedule. I gotta do this, and this day, and so I gotta figure out my schedule. But we're gonna try to keep the ball rolling, keep my momentum going, keep riding. Hopefully, I get some guys here to come ride with me. I've invited some people. It's tough for them. Everybody's been gone for so long right now, and I think maybe I'll get some people out here after High Point because. Personally, I like riding with people.
Of course, yeah.
For one, it beats the track up a little bit better, and for two, you have somebody to push yourself off of, rather than just by yourself in your own lap time.
Yeah, for sure. I just got a message just last week or in the last couple of weeks here from what's that FMX down there. I really like it. I really enjoy that track, though it's hard on your stuff. It's pretty sandy, but I know that she wants us to set up some kind of ride day or I don't know that we want to do a riding school or not, but a ride day or something. So should get in touch with you and we can set up something like that together. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I would absolutely do that. I've gone there a couple times. I took Aaron there, Salinas last year before Redbud, and we went there 2 or 3 times, and he loved the track. It was like prime that day. Nobody came, and it was just us on a weekday. So yeah, that place is awesome.
Got to catch it right, when there's just enough rain, though. Like it's got to be. You got to catch it at the right time.
Yep. I mean, it sprinkled all the way there, and he was kind of like, "Man, is it gonna be muddy?" And that black dirt there it was awesome the day we went.
Yeah. So any Northwestern Indiana listeners, be on the lookout for that, because that's something I would really like to put together. I know that she wanted us to do something like that last year too. But Pal, High Point is up next. How do we feel about High Point?
Feeling pretty good. Last year I rode pretty decent there. Hard pack tracks are not always my cup of tea.
Okay.
As I struggled at Gatorback a little bit, just my bike setup. I was getting super pumped up in my arms. So I've been trying to figure out something with that and trying to work on that. So that's really my only worry is the hard packed. I love the sand tracks. I think I've shown that even from
Yeah.
the Decker race in Texas. Texas was so rough. It was super choppy. But my bike outworked a lot of bikes on the track. And yeah, so I think we'll be ready. My track here at home is kind of hard packed. So I'm going to try to ride that quite a bit and see what I can do.
Yeah, man, you've been on a tear. You've been a top finisher in ATV Fantasy, all the races this year in your tier, going back to last year. Like you've been the guy in that tier. I've been telling people, like, I think we got to move you up because you're too easy of a pick right now. Everybody just knows that they got to pick Logan Stanfield. So yeah, I think that that'll be exciting to see what you got at High Point. But maybe it's all those laps at Redbud. Maybe that's why you're so good in the sand.
Yeah, it might be. I've grown up there. I mean, we used to go up there on our 90s, and
Right.
we would get a group of us and race that rough track. Even they would have a race like every other weekend, it seems like back in the day.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe that's what got me ready. And I've always loved riding sand. Even when I was on 969, we would go ride Travis's track, and then we would go to a place called Bean City, and it was a sand pit. Actually, a lot of Supercross guys go there,
Okay.
and that place was insane, like insane rough, just rollers everywhere, into the turns, out of the turns. So stuff like that. Yeah, I love riding that stuff. I know it beats the stuff up, your equipment up pretty good, but I could ride that stuff every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, referencing when you were a younger kid, like you guys had a pretty gnarly, like a pretty good little local series in the northern Indiana area there. You had looked like some good following, some good numbers, some cool tracks. Like you guys, like growing up, you were in a good place there.
Yeah, we had really good riders.
Yeah, you
Tracks.
did. Yeah.
Reed's Racing, they had, I think, 4 tracks at that time. There was one in Fort Wayne, like an hour and a half. And just like the competition that I grew up, there was, 3 or 4 families from here, like Geyers. I mean, their shop's right across the street from ours. I grew up with Brogan and Maddie,
Mhm.
The Boyers, Blake Sarver.
Yep.
Even Macy Davenport, I think, would come over here and race a couple times, and she was fast when we were young.
Yeah.
And growing up with all them, and it took me a while to carry over to the nationals. Blake would go there, and he would be top 3 in 90 production. That's when you raced the 125s with the Apexes and
Yep.
the Cobras, any 90. You show up and you race, and he would run up on a 125 and show him how it was done on that.
Yeah, you guys had such a good group back then. Like you're saying, there were so many good guys that came from, and girls that came from that crew there. I remember you being on a TRX 90 like it was yesterday. It's crazy.
I know, and everybody looks at him now like, wow, you rode that thing, and I'm like, yeah, that was the thing back
That was
then.
the quad to have. Yeah.
That was the fastest thing out of the gate, and
Mhm.
now I just don't think they like build them up like we used to. You don't see any kids like it's like a starting class right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Things change so fast. I mean, that's something that we talked about with Tom Carlson on our last episode, where like when I was coming up, it was 300 EXs. In a decade earlier than that, they were racing those in the pro class. And then like just after me, before me, like in 2004, 5, 3, the Z400 was the quad to beat in the pro class, and like 3 or 4 years later it's a youth quad basically in the schoolboy senior class. Like it's nuts. And then going to your era, those years there, like the TRX 90 was gnarly, and you were kind of like one of the last guys as part of that. It's just funny to think about. Like I said, I got those images of the 55 TRX 90 burned in my mind. Like you were one of the last dudes.
Yeah, I think we really were. Even the Lingles, we all had the same bike setup, same motors at Scott
Yeah.
Kane Racing, and that TC engines. We actually had a 300 built by him. My cousin raced it for a little bit at locals,
Okay.
and that's kind of when I was getting to that point where I could get on it, and then bam, that 250 came out in the bikes, and my dad's like, "Yeah, we're gonna build one of them."
Yeah.
After we seen them race, we're like, "Wow, that's the ticket right now."
That took everything to a whole different level. And now here we are, and it's so cool to see, because you see these 250 kids and they get on 450s and they're ready to go now because that 250 is so good. I mean, look at he's kind of like your teammate, right? He rode a TDR Yamaha this weekend, but look at Mason Jackson, man. Like he's still, and I'm going to say this to him, we got him coming up on the show here, but like he still looks like he's riding a 250. Like he's hiding behind the handlebars like a little dude, yet he's freaking killing it. Like he's taking, I mean, he's making as big a statement as anybody. He's flying. So long story short, like that 250 changed the game because now these kids are ready to rip. I mean, all you guys, like you did the same thing. You went from 250 to Pro Sport Pro-Am, and you were hitting the ground running basically right away.
Yeah, I think it's a major step for them to be able to come from the 250, and like the 250s are not a slouch. Like I could get on them
Not at all.
and probably run a pretty close lap time to what I run on my big bike, if I had it all set up. And even like they're putting 350 KTM dirt bike motors in their practice bikes. And I remember Zach had one, and I had a stock Honda 450, and that thing was no slower than mine. It was almost frustrating. He's 15, and I was just going into A class, and his bike was just as fast as mine. And just knowing him, he would hold it wide open then, and it was crazy.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, awesome to relive some of those memories. It feels like it was just yesterday, and now you're a guy who's a staple of the pro class, and a guy that people are leaning on for their ATV fantasy teams week in and week out. So that's cool. But I gotta let you get back to track prep, pal. I can't thank you enough for your time. We're always pulling for you. I'll never forget you guys running the Digging Deep logos on your banners at the races when Digging Deep was brand new. I was so proud of that at the time. So thanks for being awesome. So awesome to us over the years, and keep up the great work, buddy. I look forward to seeing you and your family at the races sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and always supporting me as well. You always have something good to say about me. I appreciate it. And you do all this stuff just to help expose us, so we appreciate it as well.
Pal, you deserve it and then some. So we appreciate it, and we'll see you soon. All right.
All right. Thank you.
That's Logan Stanfield, who has been slaying it so far this season, joining us right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, brought to you by Binky's Forever ATC Museum. Thanks so much, pal.
Thank you.
All right, guys, back here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, and I'm joined by one of the standout rookies in this year's class of pro class newcomers, brought to you by Bronco ATV and UTV Components. Bronco's catalog includes electrical components to engine internals and cylinders, suspension parts, bearing kits, and just about everything in between. Available at your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com. Say hello to Mr. Adam Ulrich. Adam, first time joining the podcast here. Thanks for being here, pal.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Well, welcome to Digging Deep. Welcome to the AMA ATV Pro class as well, right? Are you getting used to that yet? I mean, being a licensed professional, this has to be something that you've dreamt of for forever, I would think.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a little weird, I've been looking forward to this my whole life, and
yeah,
it's kind of surreal being a part of it, being on the gate with the pros and stuff like that, like being able to walk the track with Jeffrey Rastrelli and Chad Wienen, like it was like super weird and like kind of surreal for me,
Yeah. I think that can be a hurdle at the beginning. Like, do I belong here? I mean, at least it was for me. It was like, man, do I see myself with these guys? And it's funny. It's like all the little things too. It's racing and qualifying at a set time instead of just being in the order and all those things. It's like the little things. Like you're not the guy getting stranded as the last class before the pros anymore. It's just one of those things. It's funny to be on the other side of it when you finally get there. And how old are you, Adam?
I just turned 18 about a month ago, so yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you're new to this game. I mean, I've watched obviously your amateur career and being so good on 250s and jumping up and being really good in pro sport and pro-am right away, and now the pro class. It's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about your program, Adam, because I know you're on the Yamaha this year now, and things are a little different there. So tell me about that.
Yeah, the Yamaha jump, it honestly fit me like pretty well. Like being on the hybrids for so long and then jumping to Yamaha, it kind of felt like second nature. Like I really, really gelled with the bike and stuff like that. And like on and off the bike training with the program, I've been working with them for so long. Of course, Dom.
Of course. Yes, of course.
Yeah, I've been working with him for close to 5 years, and me and him like really gel and stuff like that. And yeah, I live close to his house. I go to his house all the time and train and stuff like that. And I have a great team with my dad and the Highline and JB and Baldwin. They help me out a ton with RP, everything. Everyone in my corner like really puts together a solid team for me to do well in this pro class.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That is one of the things that I wanted to touch on, the program thing with Dom there, because I knew, like, when we talked about you even coming into the season and early in the season there, I mean, I knew like you're obviously going to be in shape. You know, like I said, sometimes there is a clear mental hurdle a person needs to get over when you're a rookie in the pro class, right? Like that's just a thing for everybody, I feel like. But yeah, like physically, I knew you were going to be good to go, and you've been impressive from the very start. But like you kind of touched on already, I mean, like lining up against Joel Hetrick and Chad Wienen, like some of that is surreal. You know, I mean, you've grown up watching these guys and watching the pros and probably watching their videos and trying to mimic what they're doing. And then even you're doing it at 18, which is younger than most. It's younger than I was when I went pro. And I mean, that's just, that's such an awesome thing, because you got a leg up going forward. I mean, if you stick with this thing for years to come, like to already be a pro at 18, man, you're going to find your footing, and the sky's the limit, I feel like.
Oh yeah, for sure. And just after last year, we really thought that it was the right time to go pro. I really wanted to get into the pro class early and get my feet wet, you know, because no matter what time you step up, like the first year and the first couple of years are always going to be hard. No matter if you're like Bryce Ford or Max Link, like all these guys, like they you know tend to struggle their first year. So I just really want to get out of the way, you know, and really just get my feet wet.
Yeah, and I was stoked to see you jump on the Yamaha too, because I mean, we saw tons of rides, and I shouldn't say tons, but we saw a few rides from you last year where you'd be doing really well and up front, and then you'd have a problem. And I don't know if it was simply because of the hybrid thing or whatever. I mean, seemingly like the hybrids are quite reliable too, but I think the Yamaha is just the ticket. And I was stoked to see you go that direction, because like I said, I don't know if I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, the reliability is good. The wear and tear is good. It's obviously a great platform, but I was stoked to see you go in that direction. And obviously, like you stand out too with the yellow. I like it. So I was stoked to see you go that way.
Yeah. You know, we really struggled last year with a hybrid. Now, it wasn't really the team's fault or the bike's fault, just like tons of bad luck. And we just couldn't really get things figured out, moving in the right direction for us. But I got on this Yamaha, and it was really consistent for me. That's what I really liked. Like it was really fluid and predictable, and that's what I really liked. And I told my team, like, I really think I could do well on this bike, and that's what we went with. And obviously the yellow, you know, seeing Chad's bike, I think it was like the 60th year anniversary bike. That was like the coolest bike to me. So I promised myself if I got on Yamaha, it had to be yellow and black, and that's what we went with.
I agree. I loved that yellow bike of Chad's, and I think it was like 2016, maybe that would have been the year. So that was super, super cool. So totally in line with what you're thinking there. And the other thing that we haven't touched on about your program is you had been training with Jeffrey prior to, you told me that you're back home now in PA, but you had been training with Jeffrey or at Jeffrey's there in the early season and preseason. So maybe like that helped you. I mean, obviously it would have helped with training and having a great riding partner and all those things, but maybe that helps with kind of that mental hurdle that I referenced, because you haven't said that maybe that isn't necessarily a thing for you. Maybe that helped you see some of those top guys as you know, nothing other than humans, just like you and I, because you're with Jeffrey every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Jeffrey really helped me out, like even with like the bike and the setup and the training and just everything, especially mentally, you know. And it's nice to have Jeffrey like in my corner, you know. I could go talk to him after races and stuff like that, and you know, he just really helped me out. Like I was living at his house for about like a month and a half, and I went riding with him every day. He helped me work on my bike. It was super cool, and just a really friendly guy, you know.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated everything that he does for me. And he continues to do it. Like he was on the gate with me for Pro-Am, helping me out with my hole shots, which I really do appreciate. I was struggling with those hole shots, and we got figured out.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm just really appreciative with him and his whole family for just letting me stay there, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're great people. I love Jeffrey, obviously. And I had always, and I know I've said on my show before here, but that's something that I didn't do a good enough job of, is aligning myself with another pro while I was a pro. I felt like if I would have done that, it would have probably helped me. It was just being in Wisconsin. I mean, I should have went in and stayed somewhere with somebody, and so I could see their speed, you know, because otherwise, like when you're where I am and other people too, like if you're not riding with some other fast guys, I mean, you get to the race and you feel like you're ripping, and you're in 10th or 12th or 14th or whatever the place is. And it's just hard to simulate that speed that some of those guys have. Well, when you're practicing with it every day, you're like, man, I know I can go faster. There's 2 more seconds out here, and you can see where it is, right? I mean, that's such an advantage for you.
Yeah, it's especially when you get to the level that's that. I mean, it's hard to find guys that really want to ride with you and stuff like that. And that's what Jeffrey did. Like, he wasn't scared to tell me like about what he's doing in this corner, what he's doing, what he sees me doing on the track. Like, he's not scared to get behind me and push me, and it just really helped me out, really understand the race pace of that pro class.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, that's a huge advantage for you. And like I said, man, you've been super impressive all season so far. 15th at Daytona. You were the top rookie, not named Kevin Saar or John Glada. I actually tried to get some direction or confirm if Kevin Saar counts as a rookie or not, because I want to know if he's in this thing for Rookie of the Year. But yeah, so him and John Glada are kind of outliers to me. So you were the top rookie at Daytona, not named Kevin Saar or John Glada. You were 15th at Gatorback. You were the second best rookie there behind Aaron Salinas, other than, again, excluding Kevin Saar. And then this past weekend, obviously your best weekend so far with 12th overall. You were the top rookie, and dude, like I said, you've been really good so far. I actually wanted to talk to you after the last race, and I'm glad it worked out this way, because you nabbed that 12th this weekend. So tell me a little bit about the races so far, what it's been like racing the pro class, because again, like, you've impressed me each weekend out. I mean, and this is something I've touched on weekend after weekend here when we talk about the races, but to see like that battle of pro-am guys, all pro-am guys from a year ago, new incoming pros all together. I mean, to be at or near the top of that pack has to be a little bit of a feather in your cap. I know you obviously always want more. If you're in 12th, you want 10th. If you're in 10th, you want 8th. But to be that, top guy or one of the top guys in that pro-am battle, like, that has to feel good, I would think.
Oh yeah, and I raced with them all last year, and as much as I would like to say that I was with those guys last year, I mean, to be honest, I really wasn't. I was kind of near the back, not really near the back, but I wasn't up there with them. And to really battle with Aaron Salinas and Dave Molander, I mean, they were untouchable last year to me. Like, I didn't beat them, I think, not one single moto, and it's cool to see me battling with them now. And I'm really liking those longer motos. I think it's really helping me out. And I'm just really enjoying battling with those guys, because last year I didn't think I was on their level.
Well, and I think that's part of why you stand out so much to me, is like, you were by no means at the back or whatever you said there. I mean, you were just a click off from those guys, but they were exactly, maybe the top 2 guys clearly in pro-am. And now to be, I mean, at a lot of these races, at a lot of these motos so far, I know we're only 6 or 7 motos in or whatever it is, but you're kind of right at the tip of the spear there of that group. And I think that's quite impressive. I mean, and like you said, I mean, that was an advantage for me too. I think you talking about longer motos there, that was something that I really liked too. I mean, I don't know that my 1 lap speed was ever the greatest ever or anything, but I always knew in the last 5 minutes of the moto, especially when I got on the program, that I could make some moves. And if you can have that in your back pocket, like, if you can be the guy making moves at the end of the motos, it's almost like you'll get 2 guys per moto just on that. And that's a huge thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you look at my qualifying, like, it's always like more or less terrible. I mean, in Pro-Am, I think I was like 3 seconds off of Mason Jackson and Blair Miller. It kind of affected me at the time, but like, when I get on that track, I feel like I could just run what I do consistently, and that's what the program helps. Is just, I don't really care about my 1 lap speed. I care about what I could do lap in and lap out. And
exactly.
Yeah, that's what I think my advantage is over these guys.
Well, and the other thing too, like in 2012, 13, like that era, we used to qualify in Pro-Am production. That's not something that you've done much in your career, So, I mean, the whole time qualifying thing is kind of new.
It's super weird. Like, I'm rolling around the track with like Joel Hetrick and stuff like that, and like, it's weird. I mean, I'm used to like, the Friday practices and hitting the jumps and stuff like that and going fast. It's weird to be able to like, take a breather lap and look and see what other guys are doing, and it's something that I need to work on and something that I'm gonna get better at.
Yeah, you just got, a person's just got to get comfortable with it, right? But it is weird. Like, yes, you have time, but the timer's also going on the very first lap, So
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you come by and you see, these pit boards or maybe your pit board and it says, whatever place, and you're like, shoot, like I gotta go. I don't have I
Exactly.
don't have time to just dilly dally out here. And you're exactly right. So it is different than, your whole career leading up. You got Friday practice. You can just get used to the track and jump and focusing on one jump at a time or whatever it is. And that's obviously not the case when you make it to the pro class. So you touched on Pro-Am a little bit. We know you're racing Pro-Am as well this year, 2 fourth overalls so far. I would think racing the pro class makes Pro-Am feel, I don't want to say easier, but there's clearly less pressure when you go to the line for Pro-Am. So what does that feel like compared to years past? I mean, I'm sure it's almost like you got the governor off when you go to Pro-Am this year, I would think.
Oh yeah, it's super weird. I always thought that the Pro-Am motos were like super long, and now it's like a sprint for me. And
right.
It's just as much as the pro class helps me, I think the Pro-Am class helps me with pro too. Racing with these young fast guys, and like obviously like these guys up front aren't any slouch, and
no,
and it's good. It's good to have me battling with them. I think it's really giving me an edge in pro too, as much as the pro class is giving me an edge in Pro-Am. I think it works hand in hand, and I think it's good battling in the front of the pack. Obviously, 2 fourths, like it's good right now, but it's not really why I want to be at the end of the season with this Pro-Am class. But these guys are fast, also.
Oh, dude, for sure. I mean, that Pro-Am class is really, I mean, that top 5 in Pro-Am right now is gnarly. And I think that there is no substitution for racing at the front of the pack. Like if it's Pro-Am or whatever it is, I mean, that doesn't matter. Like that's a good for anybody's confidence is to be racing at the front of the class like that. And I mean, I figure, so like when you first go to Pro-Am, that feels like such a step. It feels like the lights class, the pro lights class of quads, like that's essentially what it is. And then you go pro and it's like, okay, now Pro-Am feels like I don't want to say like nothing, but again, we say on all these shows, that in the pro class, like every single dude is gnarly, and not that every single dude isn't gnarly in Pro-Am, but it's just not quite the same, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's weird to be battling with these like Blair Miller and stuff like that. Like these guys are aggressive guys that will be in the pro class one day. And
for sure.
It's good. It's just really good to be battling with these guys, and it's helping me out for pro, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen now for a number of years these guys be good right away in pro, and obviously you're doing really well in pro right away, and the guys you're referencing that haven't quite made the jump yet are going to do the same thing. It's funny, in the Pro-Am class now, you find like you said, you used to feel like it was so long, and now you probably find, at least I remember finding myself thinking, man, I wish I had 3 or 4 more laps like the pro
exactly.
modes, so it's funny how that works out. But so as we look forward to High Point, I'm sure that's one that you look forward to. Like I said, you're a PA guy. You've finished on the Pro-Am podium there before, second in 2021. So I'm assuming you're excited for that one.
Oh yeah. I mean, as much as I like the underground, that track I felt like it didn't really suit my strong points. I feel like my strong points are on these like dry, slick tracks, hard packed. And I'm really good at High Point. So I'm really looking forward to that. I want to get up with that next group of guys with those Cody Fords and Michael Allred, and stuff like that. So I'm just looking forward to battling with these guys and getting another try at it.
Okay. Well, our ATV fantasy players definitely perked up just now when you said that you're good at High Point, good on that style racetrack. People will enjoy that. But yeah, I think that you're well on your way. Like if you can get some decent starts and keep doing what you're doing, I think you could very much find yourself, right there with Cody Ford and Michael Allred right around that top 10. I mean, you're well on your way, man. You're obviously stacking success, and you've been building every weekend. I feel like you've been better every weekend. And if you keep doing that, man, you're going to be right where you want to be.
Oh yeah. And this whole pro thing's like really a work in progress. Like
for sure.
Like every time I'm on that gate, I learn something new. And I get better every moto. So
right.
I'm looking forward to just just really improving this year and learning. So
yeah, it's crazy like how a person deals with like the pressure of the pro class. I mean, I remember growing up and racing like some big money local races and stuff and feeling like man, like this is it. This is so big. And then I remember sitting on the line for pro motos and thinking, I used to think that was a big deal when there was like $5,000 to win. And not that it's totally, the pro class is different. You're not going to win $5,000, but it's like that this is so much more important. And it's just like everybody's out here and they're going to do anything for, every single spot. It's gnarly. Like it's so hard to describe to people that haven't been in the pro class what that's like, where there's dudes around you all the time. There's fast guys in front of you, on the side of you, and behind you, ready to overtake your spot if you make a mistake or let up 1%. It's just crazy, but it's got to be amazing for you to be a part of that, and a dream achieved, right? And again, to be 18 years old and doing it, man, that's such an awesome thing. I'm so stoked for you, and now to be kind of heading home and kind of making your pro debut at a home race, at a home like race. That's going to be exciting for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just really looking forward to like being home and like getting back with training with Dom, and like I'm running track right now. I actually have a track meet later on today, but really just working on my own program here. Like I'm eating the food that I want to eat, like healthy food and stuff like that. So I really think this is going to help me. I don't have to like spend a week in an RV to get to Texas. It's 4 hours away. So we're back to a normal schedule for me. I think that's really going to help me too.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think that there is a lot to be said about just being back at your home base, especially when you've been gone for however long, for 2 or 3 months. I mean, we talked to Logan Stanfield about the same thing. He's getting home for the first time in 3 months. And it's like, man, finally I'm back to my home base. It's like you said, it's just easier to do everything. It's easier to eat, to do your laundry, to do everything. Like it's just easier. So are you a senior in high school? Is that what you are?
Yeah. I'm a senior in high school. I got a month left to go. So
okay. Well, that's an exciting time for you there too. But well, pal, I've been super impressed with your season so far, and I just had to get you on to talk about it. I wanted to hear a little bit more about your program and where you're at. This has been an awesome conversation. So I'll let you get back to your schoolwork, but obviously want to wish you the best. Keep it up, keep slaying it, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon, pal. If you keep slaying it, we'll keep bringing you on the show.
That's awesome. I will. Thank you for this, Cody.
Absolutely, pal. You deserve it. That's pro class rookie Adam Ulrich right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, brought to you by Bronco ATV and UTV Components. Thanks so much, pal. All right, guys, our final guest of the night is a young man who, in my opinion, has made the biggest statement of the sport so far in this 2023 season. Brought to you by Blenders Eyewear, the official eyewear choice of Digging Deep. Use code DiggingDeep20 for 20% off at blenderseyewear.com. A first-time guest to Digging Deep. I don't know if I've even spoken to this guy before in person, which I can't say about for too many people in ATV motocross. It's Pro-Am winner in Texas, Mr. Mason Jackson. Mason, congrats on the win this past weekend, and thanks for joining me to talk about it, pal. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
So 17 years old, pal. First career Pro-Am win at your age is amazing. I mean, you just capped your 250 career in 2021. It feels like yesterday to me. And then I'm sure you had big goals for last season. And then you got hurt. I think it was an ACL, I think. And then there goes your rookie 450 season. So tell me about last season a little bit.
Yeah, we just went to Deckers. It was early February and everything was going good. We usually try to hit Deckers for a week, get riding time in. We can't usually get much riding time in Michigan. There's a lot of snow.
Right.
So went down there, everything went according to plan, and came back, hopped on a snowboard.
You're kidding me. That's where it happened? Oh no. I was assuming it happened at Deckers or practicing somewhere, but it was a snowboard. Damn it.
No, snowboard got me.
Okay.
Just slipped out of it and knee twisted behind me and heard the pop and knew it wasn't good. Got it checked out. It was a complete tear on the ACL, and I sprained my MCL.
Okay.
And we were going to try to race the season on it.
Yep.
And we did PT. It was going good. Swelling was going down.
Yep.
Made it to Daytona. I think I third in the mains, sixth in the heat, I think. Did pretty good.
Yep.
Won 458 at Three Palms, and I think I was fourth in Pro Sport, so I did good there.
Mm-hmm.
And then got around to High Point, and they watered the face of that triple.
That uphill. Yep.
Yeah. And case that, shredded the meniscus. And so that was time to get some surgery.
Yep.
Got surgery, got that all reconstructed. I was out till our last local, Baja.
Okay. Yep.
Went to that, the Monster Mash. I was racing with Blair, was doing good.
Okay.
And that was pretty much the 2022 season for me. I did a lot of watching, went to every national besides Briarcliff.
Oh, you
So,
did? Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. With your sister racing still, I'm
Yeah.
sure, and stuff. So, okay. So yeah, I mean, I did something very similar. It wasn't on a snowboard, but about your age, a little bit younger, but my last 300 or would have been 250 year for you, but I tore my ACL at the end of the season there, ACL, MCL, meniscus. And yeah, instantly hear the pop, instantly swells up. I got all this stuff. I tried to ride a little bit. I had to ride the last national to clinch the national title with it tore, and without, ACL, MCL, meniscus. So you'll be able to know how this feels. But I had basically like, there wasn't much in my knee left. Right. So I ended up breaking the top of my lower leg off.
Yeah. I chipped my femur.
Exactly, because there was nothing there. And same thing happened to me, but was able to get it done. And then, I've told people, and this stinks, like at the time, and maybe you felt the same way, but at the time I felt like the world was caving in. I was so bummed that this happened to me. And same with you. You had all this momentum, you're doing really well on your first 450 races of your national career. I remember you making waves in pro sport already then, and then this happens. And it's like, man, now what? And I feel like for me, like that was a defining moment for my career and life, where you really got to like put two and two together, that dedication with PT in the gym, all that stuff means just as much as your time in the shop or on the track. Right. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's a daunting task to come back from something like an ACL injury. And I feel like it pays dividends down the road. I mean, look at where you are now already, and maybe the story is different had you not, hurt your knee like that. Like, I feel like I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. And I mean, you've hit the ground running here, kind of on the backside of all that mess from last year.
Yeah, no, it for sure hurt me, but I think it did help me because I got to sit and watch everybody for a whole year that I race against and sit there and watch them that entire time. And it just made me want it that much more and made me focus on training and getting back to being fit. And it really did help.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you look like a dude that's got a bunch of pent up energy, here when we watch it here at the beginning of the season. You get eighth and a seventh here to start the season in pro sport at Daytona and Gainesville. And then Sunday in Florida, you get your first moto win of your Pro-Am career. That was when and I remember thinking, man, Mason Jackson looks good last year before, I know you were riding with an ACL before your season was over. And then here at Gainesville was when I was like, man, or at Gatorback was when I was like, man, whoa. So tell me what that was like, because that was, man, you first uncorked it, I feel like there.
Yeah. Daytona, that was pretty much a fitness measure for me. That was hard. And then we got to Gatorback. Me and Casey Fancher, he races B. He's doing good in B. He lives close to me. We do a lot of biking just on the road.
Okay.
And so we did about 130 miles or something like that before Gatorback, the week leading up to Gatorback. And I think that really helped. Went there. I never got tired. I was racing Blair and Joey Chambers and Adam and just everybody. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
In the pro sport, my front sprocket came off.
Oh boy.
So
jeez.
That was, went to the LCQ. Frame snapped Friday. Snapped it right now.
Gosh, man. Jesus.
Forgot to tighten a bolt.
Got it. Okay.
So went to the LCQ, won the LCQ, and then went to the main for pro sport. I think I got first or second.
Okay.
And that got me, I think, a fourth overall.
Okay.
So
Yeah, crazy ride. So you obviously you're gaining more and more momentum as it goes here. You put together some really good rides there at Gatorback, and then it all comes together. This past weekend, you race up to win Pro Sport Moto 1, right? And then you put on a phenomenal charge in Moto 2, but Brett Music just held you off in that second moto. I feel like you had to still be happy with how that went, though, because again, you're gaining more and more momentum ahead of obviously what we see on Sunday.
Yeah, it's a big confidence booster for sure being up there with those guys and racing. They're really fast. Brett is super fast.
And been fast for a long time. And I feel like too, I mean, when you're leading up to getting in the Pro-Am class, I mean, I don't know how it is for you, but for so many people, this is how it was for me. Like, you look at Pro-Am is like the mini pro class. It's like the lights class, comparing it to dirt bikes. So it's like, this is a big deal. And then you jump out there and you're racing right with those dudes that have been up there for a lot of years. I mean, that's a very veteran class when you think about it. I mean, Joey Chambers has done it for a number of years. Obviously, Brett's been doing it for a decade. Blair Miller, a lot of these guys have been doing it for a long time. So it's quite a veteran class there at the front. And to run up with those guys, and it seemed like, you might have had more pace than anybody because it's not like you've been getting the greatest of hole shots, at least leading up to that. And you've had to race up through those guys and to those guys. And I mean, you've just had crazy pace. We saw that on Saturday.
Yeah, I for sure got to work on the hole shots. The YFZ, the going between the hydro clutch and the cable clutch, there's a different feel to it. And I just got to get used to it.
Got it. So then you kind of touched on it there, but getting your first Pro-Am win is a great story as it is, but then add in the part where you're not even riding your quad. You're not even riding your brand of quad. You ride hybrids, and here you find yourself on Timmy D's TDR Yamaha YFZ 450R. So how did that happen? Tell me about that.
Well, we've been breaking a lot of stuff on the hybrids, a lot of pivot bolts, and just having some electrical issues. And it's always nice to have a for sure spare bike if we need it.
Of course.
And they've been trying to push me a little bit because I've just been breaking a lot of stuff, and it's nice to have a 100% fully ready race bike. And my dad drove down to Ohio, picked it up from TDR. I had 3 ride days on it before Underground. And I think we just clicked the front suspension up a few and moved the bars forward, and that was about it.
Good to go. Okay. So are we staying on a Yamaha now, or what's the scoop? What can you tell me about that?
I think I'm going to try to ride the hybrids at High Point, but I think the YFZ will for sure be in at least one class.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, crazy, like too. I mean, it shows, your versatility or your capabilities as a rider to be able to just jump on a quad like that with, not a ton of time and kind of hit the ground running. I mean, not everybody, I couldn't do that. I need to be super comfortable, or the controls need to be perfect, all these things. And obviously that's not the case for you. Like, you look at your riding style from the hybrid to the Yamaha, and you look exactly the same, like tucked down, hiding behind the bars, exactly as I remember you for your entire career on a 250 and everything else. You look exactly the same as you do right now. And that's saying something when you get on a quad and hit the ground running like that. When I first see, I'm like, wait a second, he's on a Yamaha. And then I'm like, okay, that's Timmy's. And just crazy how that happened. And you clicked with it so fast like that.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I do a lot. I like riding the dirt bike. I have a FC 250.
Got it. Okay.
And
Husky.
It's a lot of fun riding that, and it teaches me some new things, and it's just fun to learn some new stuff on a different machine. And I think some of it does translate over to the quads, and it just cornering and stuff like that with balance, and I think it for sure helps.
Got it. Okay. So I hear that, because in my lifetime, I've probably spent more time on a dirt bike than an ATV. So I totally get that. But for me, and you're right, it does help with the versatility and being quick to kind of change. But yes, it's weird for me. Like, it's a different stance on a dirt bike than a four-wheeler. So, when I go from one to the other and back again, it's like, it takes me a second.
Yeah, it takes a few laps.
Exactly. It takes a second to adjust. But that actually explains a lot of that you're able to adjust quickly. So then in Pro-Am, tell me about the races a little bit. So you finished second to Blair Miller in Moto 1, second to Kevin Saar in Moto 2, but 2-2 is good enough to get the job done. What I want to ask you about is both of those guys, because I know you're pretty tight with Blair, right? You're both Michigan guys. And isn't the story that he works for your dad? Isn't that the story or no?
Yeah, he has been for the past few years. I think he's going to try to do something different this year.
Okay.
But it's great training, doing concrete in 90-degree weather, shade, just all day.
I'm sure.
Definitely gets a little endurance built up.
I'm sure. So I had a very similar situation like that where my dad employed the guy I looked up to growing up. And I mean, even, he was a Pro-Am rider, finished on the Pro-Am podium at nationals and stuff. His name was Corey Gauthier back in the day. And same thing. Like I remember even like beating him at some local races when I'm a kid. At this point, I'm 14 or 15. And I still looked up to Corey like he was a pro to me. I mean, I mimicked so much of what I did after him and stuff like that. And I kind of, when I remembered that Blair came on the show and told us that he was working for your dad, it just clicked for me. It's a very similar situation. And I'm assuming, like, I see some of the interaction between Blair and yourself where it's like, it's almost like it's little brother Mason. I don't want to put any words in his mouth, but it looks like that dynamic. I mean, you're standing on the podium together, and yet it's like you two are connected in a way. And I'm watching you two race hard with each other at Gatorback, and I'm like, man, these two are buddies. They're just connected. They're so tight. It's funny how that works. I mean, two guys battling for podiums and wins and stuff on the national level, and yet you're, from the same area, connected in a way where he works for your dad, buddies, and I'm sure you looked up to him in a way you probably still do. I mean, there's just that's a pretty cool story, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it's really cool being close with them. We've always raced at the D14 series, 50s, 70s, 90s. Like, we've always battled no matter what it was on. Yeah. And I have a lot of fun just going back and forth with them. Locals, nationals, it doesn't matter what track we're on, we're going back and forth.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. How it is with a lot of us. And, yeah.
And that D14 series is actually, like, it's pretty impressive. And a lot of good dudes have come out of there. So so good on the crew over there. And then Kevin Saar wins that second moto, 5-time European champion. It's got to be pretty cool. It's got to be pretty cool racing a dude like that. I mean, I feel like I've said a million times, he adds so much to our series. I just thought to myself as I'm watching that second moto, obviously you wanted to win, and you made pretty serious push there too. I mean, you were putting down some burner laps to get to the front there. But to be battling with a dude that's raced all over the world, and he's regarded as the guy, aside from our US stars, he's the guy in ATV racing for the rest of the world. Had to be pretty cool racing a dude like him. Like, that was pretty special too.
Yeah, it's a good gauge for where I would be in pro too.
Absolutely.
And that guy, he doesn't get tired.
No,
he doesn't. We didn't get a lot of time between those motos, and my arms were still pumped up going up to the line, and I was just trying to keep it as cool as possible and preserve as long as possible. I was tired when the halfway mark was out, and I was just trying to hold on those last few laps, and it was close. I was catching them a little bit, but it wasn't enough.
Right. And I think that is exactly one of the other things I was thinking about, is it gives you a good gauge on where you'd be in the pro class. I know, you're a young kid. You kind of just moved up to the 450 ranks really, but obviously your goal is to make it to the pro class. You're already basically running that speed. I mean, you're racing with guys. We talked to Adam. He was great on the show here before you. And he's another guy who you can kind of gauge yourself off of, because he's been doing really well in the pro class. One of the top guys of these new incomers, and you're racing right along with him, obviously, and with guys like Kevin Saar. I mean, it does give you a really good gauge on, man, you'd be competitive already in the pro class. It's got to be a good feeling for you.
Yeah, and I'm really happy for Adam. He's doing good in pro. It's a really intimidating class, and I couldn't imagine being on the start with all those guys: Joel Hetrick, Chad Wienen, and Bryce Ford, Braden Hogue, just everybody on that line. It's really intimidating.
Well, that's the exact conversation I had with him. I mean, that's a big mental hurdle. And as I say so many times, like, there's no there's no dudes that are just circulating, right? Like you kind of look, you know, when you're on the gate in the pro class, like I remember this feeling, you look to your left, you look to your right, everybody's gnarly. There's no like, man, I got him covered. Like it's not something. Even in the pro-am class, you're like, okay, like mentally, like I should beat, you know, this sector of guys, this group of guys. But yeah, that doesn't happen in the pro class. So yeah, Adam's been killing it. And I was super happy to talk to him on the show here. He was really good and kind of gave us a glimpse into, you know, kind of his mental state on, you know, how he's been so good this year. But yeah, I mean, that's a move, pal. That's probably only a year or two away for you. Like that's right around the corner too.
Yeah. And that's one of the things why they're trying to push the YFZ so hard is it's a production class and I'm so comfortable on the hybrids and there's not too many ways to go. If you go pro, it's either between a fully built TRX, which isn't the most reliable.
Right.
We're kind of looking into the KTM option a little bit, but they're just too hard to get parts for, and I break too much stuff already. And I mean, YFZ is just it's the only manufacturer still in it.
It's about impossible to beat the things as far as the whole combination of reliability and you know how good the platform is. Obviously, like you said, I mean, I think that we're seeing some of that with Dane. You know, I think that I had a conversation with somebody just the other day, like how long is it going to be until we see him get on a Yamaha? Because obviously like he's doing well, you know, again, the class is so gnarly. There's nobody out there that makes, you know, the dudes in 14th or 15th look good. Like it's just, you know, look at the dudes from last year that were at the front of Pro-Am and Pro Sport, you know, Salinas and Molander, and, you know, they are where they are in the pro class. That's just because the class is so good. So this is nothing against Dane. I mean, I know he's getting better. He's been better at every race. But where I'm going with that is I just wonder if he would be even better on a different platform. You know, I know that they went to the Suzuki because it was going to be similar-ish to his hybrids or maybe feel like them or whatever. But I do think that kind of going the direction of the YFZ is probably the right move long-term, just because again, it's nearly impossible to beat that platform. We've seen you do some laps on some KTMs and stuff. Like I know like that would be awesome. And you'd have a bunch of people that be stoked to see it. And we had a bunch of people stoked to see Dane on the LTR. I think you're kind of seeing that. I mean, maybe they overthought it. Maybe the Yamaha would have been the better move, but yeah, we'll see. But long-term, that might be the way to go.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, we always say on these shows that if you ball out on the weekend, you'll get the call from us to come on the show. That's exactly what you did. And I look forward to doing this more in the future with you. You look like you're a future star of the sport, you know, kind of following in the footsteps of guys like Bryce Ford and Max Lindquist, Zach Decker, and the list goes on. So obviously needed to get you on the show to talk about an awesome weekend and a great start to the season. So great job. I look forward to doing more of this in the near future. And can't thank you enough for your time, pal. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time. It's been fun.
Always look forward to doing it again. That's Pro-Am winner in Texas. His first career Pro-Am win, Mason Jackson, right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, brought to you by Blenders Eyewear. See you, pal. Thanks again.
See ya.
Man, what a night, what a show, and what an awesome cast for this one. Major thanks to tonight's guests, Chad Wienen, Logan Stanfield, Adam Ulrich, Mason Jackson, and Aliza Capen. Thanks to producer Dallas Jansen, my brother, for all his hard work. Thanks to Brooke and AMA official Harv Whipple. Thanks to all of our donors. You know who you are. We appreciate you so much. Thanks to all of our partners. CST Tires. Go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Thanks to SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Nimura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Support all the great companies that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. Find it all on our website, and be sure to click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner for all your gear and parts needs and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. You can now access our ATV Fantasy race results and season standings at atvfantasy.com and at shop.diggingdeepatvmx.com. You can find our all new alternative logo shirts and hoodies just in time for the new season. So stoked on those. I'm wearing one right now. We can't keep them on the shelves. If you're looking for another easy way to help support us, visit our website and click the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee buttons. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our efforts. You can leave us a voicemail. We'll play it here on the show. We'd love to. 920 920-569-3519. That's 920-569-3519. You can follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Jansen, for additional content coverage and more fun stuff as the new season is in full swing at this point. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. Be a friend, tell a friend, please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, for Chad Wienen, Logan Stanfield, Adam Ulrich, Mason Jackson, Aliza Capen, Brooke Jansen, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Cody Jansen. Thanks for listening to and making us the most listened to podcast in ATV racing, with more than 210,000 downloads last month in 101 total countries. Until next time, thanks for joining us in Digging Deep with the Stars of ATV Motocross. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real.
I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quad leaders are freaking gnarly.